Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Monday Morning Murder Podcast. I am your host, Faye Fire, and I'm here with my lovely co host, Miss Mandy, aka Axis Mandy. And we are here today to talk about episode 7 of the third season of Yellowjackets, which is titled Croak. And of course, another wild episode. This was action packed, so much going on. This was a major episode that, of course, we've been waiting for pretty much since the beginning. Who's going to find them? How are they going to get out of there? So we have a lot to talk about today, so much stuff to get into. So how are you doing, Mandy, before we get into it? How are you doing this morning? Unmuting. Let me see. Hold on. Let me do it over here. Sorry, guys. Unmute. Okay. Wait. Oh, it says
All
you're muting
right.
yourself. There we go. Okay, we got it.
Hello. Hello, all you fellow jackets, citizen detectives, my beloved, my group, my hive, our group, our group. It's not mine. It's ours. We are one.
We're a team.
Hello. I'm back. And I'm so excited to be here. I've missed you so much. And I've been applauding your views on your solos, but I was also jealous and I missed you. And I wish I could have been here the past 2 weeks, but what happens. But before we get started, I do want to say I finally got a mic and I'm getting my stuff together. So please chat before we get into our 3-hour long stream. Or we're going to try to make it 2 today. But before we do, please let me know. Do I sound clear? Because and also I want to say thank you all for being patient and still showing up and still loving us and still listening, despite us being maybe somewhere in the spirit realm and the connection not clear. We don't know.
It's been a little, it's been a little bit weird for the last, because I had weird internet things going on the island. And so, you know how it goes. Sometimes you just got to kind of make it work. So I did a couple of regular videos for my episode reviews for the last 2 episodes, but now we're back at it and back to our regularly scheduled program. So yeah, let us know in the chat if the audio sounds good, if anything needs to be adjusted. Definitely let us know, and I can do what I can back here to kind of adjust it. But I think Mandy sounds fantastic today.
I mean, look, this is not my forte, audio, but it's definitely probably a user malfunction. I will freely admit that. So please let me know if it is. No, I'm taking full responsibility. So I'm not going rogue on this one like a lot of the Yellowjackets did. So
Indeed. But yeah. So we have a lot to talk about this morning. So this is a really exciting episode, but before we get into all the details on the episode, we have a couple of behind the scenes things to discuss. Hold on, I'm just trying to pull up a photo here. So we are getting into the final 4 of It Chooses. So this is our March Madness for Yellowjackets edition. So let me pull up the bracket here because we are now in the final 4, which is really exciting, but also sad. I'm not ready to be done, but it's been a lot of work, so maybe I am ready to be done.
But so Erin, you has been doing this all by herself, even though I was the one who was like, let's do it. I was so excited, but she has been working extremely hard on it. And I also want to point out that Erin did say in the beginning, since we are the queens over here, we get to pick somebody to kill or change. And she put Callie back in.
Yes.
And Callie has made it. And y'all know I am not a Callie fan. Should should I trump Callie? Should I use my king card here and delete
I don't know. I mean, I thought we agreed it was only up until the top 8 personally, but
Well, Lottie didn't agree to shoot some.
We'll let the chat have their say, but I think it's a really good matchup, because that's what happened in the first round. We had Callie versus Lottie, adult Lottie, and I just want to remind everyone this entire bracket was chosen at random. We used a website called wheelofnames.com. So all of the things were randomly chosen. So I didn't have any, other than using my golden ticket to put Callie back in. That was the only manual adjustments that we've made.
Listen, this is what I'm gonna do. If we get like a big super, or if Aaron gets a super chat, like a big one, then you get to choose, because I'm not going to choose, because I know better than to outplay the wilderness. And
all right,
I'm going to know that it chooses.
All
so
right.
I'm going to give my golden
Fair point.
ticket to someone who, I don't know, Aaron, you make the rules for who gets my golden ticket. But that's it. It has to be today. It has to be during this chat.
During this live chat. Okay, if anyone wants to do if anyone does a $20, they can do a $20 buyout. But
Yes,
it's a
that's good.
one-time thing. So first come, first serve. If somebody does a $20 super chat and they want to trump one of these people in the top 4, then I will allow it this one time during this stream. Man,
and you can
talk me into it.
This is my this is Christian, my esposo.
Hi Christian, thanks for watching.
Thank you for fixing my audio. He's the blame for the bad audio. No, I'm just kidding.
There we go.
But yeah, listen, so back to this. If you, I love how she says Van's necklace. Okay, well, it's a $20 thing. Or the hot cocoa. I think the hot cocoa is great too. But I'm gonna give it to you, but I'm gonna put some rules in it, because actually, you know what? No, you can put any character you want. Because if you want to bring back, because I really feel like Randy should be there, and y'all know Walter. Like Walter all day is my character. So, whatever character you want to trade out for Callie, if you could do a $20 one, it has to be during this stream. If not, then the wilderness, it will choose for us.
Okay, hold on. I'm making a banner for us, just so you guys know.
Welcome. I'm just gonna say, like, Rahala
stream only. Okay.
Look, hello, Danielle Elizabeth. Welcome. Can we put Kodiak in? We'll talk about Kodiak. And welcome, Edna.
We can put Kodiak in anywhere he wants to be in. Anyways, I'm sorry.
I love Dream Girl. Okay, I love that shirt. She's like, me and mom are stat. We know we got lots of things going on with the mom today. And when you're in trouble, you always call your mom. And my mom's coming to visit soon, so I'm really happy about that. But got coffee in the cauldron. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Welcome, everybody. We love you. We're so glad to have you today.
Oh, yeah. So the Final 4 showdown as it stands right now. Hold on. Let me put it back up real quick. We have, so it's going to be Nat versus Coach Ben, and it's Misty versus Callie as it stands right now. So if anyone wants to do this, we've got the ticker going down there at the bottom if anyone wants to partake. Now, so today we don't have a poll up. I'm going to put the poll up tomorrow for the Final 4. We're doing, Nat versus Coach on Tuesday, Misty versus Callie on Wednesday, and then we'll probably do the final 2 on Friday, just so we kind of have, and I'll probably allow through the weekend voting on that. If everyone's, we're coming up with this as we go here. So
listen,
if you guys are watching this on a replay, you might want to just skip the first few minutes if you're like, what are you guys talking about?
There's no schedule on the wilderness. Okay. Indeed. We tried for this March Madness, but we are never really on schedule either. Look at, here we go. Someone put Kodiak in the bracket. I don't think I can. Oh, wait. Yeah. So if you want to do it for this, hey, Dream Girl, you're our dream girl. Thank you for the love.
Mm-hmm.
And also, wait, so
keep that in. Go ahead.
I do want to say, I think that Coach Ben has a true advantage here for the sympathy votes. Okay.
I was surprised he made it. I was surprised he beat Akila. In fact, I was even disappointed he beat Akila. My personal vote went to Akila, but that's that.
So, you know me, I'm a Misty all day. And I think Misty this episode, and Misty, she is stepping into her own finally. I mean, she's kind of stepping into Nat's shoes, really. But we'll
Mhm.
talk about that later. But however, Misty is finally standing up for herself. And now she's standing for the final four. So, let's hurrah.
Yes.
I spy with my little eyes Misty
I think
quickly.
the final two showdown being teen Nat versus adult Misty would be particularly spicy. So, all right. So on to the next subject. I am once again asking for the season 4 renewal announcement. We are here yet another week. We do not have the season 4 renewal announcement. So I don't know what's up with that. Hopefully we will be getting that soon. I have no updates, unfortunately. I've talked about this every week and we still haven't gotten it. So we can just put out the positive vibes, ask the wilderness. I did see this week that I can't remember who exactly it was, but it was a guy who does like reviews, or he's a journalist or something, and he had posted that he saw the final episode of season 3 and that he believes that they do need another season to wrap things up. So I don't know if they're like in negotiations, like contract negotiations, like maybe like I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people that are slated to this show. There was an article from back in September. I want to say Film Updates or like Pop whatever posted it that said that if we get a season 4, Hilary Swank will be a main character cast for season 4. Now that seems like really preemptive because again, it was from September 2024. So it's kind of like a weird article, but whatever. I just, we haven't gotten it yet, so I don't know what the plan is. I feel like we need another season. I'm going to be really upset and heartbroken if we don't get another season, but we can just only cross our fingers and hope because that's the way it goes in this game. So,
This is
I
also my number one show over even Game of Thrones, over a lot of things that I watch. I love this show so much because of all the deep symbolism, and I love to share that with everyone. And Aaron and I talk about it, and I'm telling you, and I've said it before, this show has changed my life once I started, getting into like the deep lore about the storylines, about the healing recovery, about narcissistic abuse and how the patterns arise, and about all these kinds of childhood traumas and things. So they definitely, I mean, look, you're always healing every day. This show heals us, and I know it also kills a lot of things too, but let's let it kill the old, heal and grow the new, bring on the spring again. I definitely feel personally that we already like they're rushing deaths. Like, I mean, how much shock can we get with the death and the things? And I hope that that doesn't have to happen. I hope we can get more deeper,
yeah.
and we can help to gain the fandom, a deeper fandom as well with these things. So I really, if they definitely need 4, but 5 is perfect.
Yeah. I feel like 4 is like it's a good round number too, as far as like kind of the theme of the show being so nature related, like having the 4 seasons sort of coinciding with the whole theme of the show, I think is important. Um I do believe that we're gonna get. I mean, I've been burned before, big time on high hopes. So like I'm just being wary. But yeah, we still haven't gotten that yet. So I am fingers crossed it's coming soon. So
I like this. Yeah, I want to know about when they get home, how, the trauma about after they get home, like how they're adjusting. I think that
eh,
that alone, like adjusting from trauma and how they come back to real life, I think that alone could be like at least 2 seasons, because you could see them going through therapy, you could see them doing group therapy as I don't know. There's just so much you could do with that. But like, I
yeah.
love this comment about Jeff and Shauna getting married as well. What I would like to
Yeah.
see is I would like to see them renew their vows too, with all of this going on.
If that is what happens,
So
that's the big question. But Yeah, I think it would be really important to have that final season to kind of see how they reacclimate, readjust to society. And even so the whole scene with Jackie in episode 5, 4, where she says, you know, what you did after you came back. It's not just about what happened out in the wilderness, but what you did after you came back. And so obviously there's more to be seen that's outside of just this situation that we're dealing with currently with like Alex and like Hannah's child or what have you. There's something more. And I have had strong, I've talked about this with you guys before, but I have strong ideas. Like I feel like something might have happened at Jeff and Shauna's wedding because we have their wedding record and they got married in, I want to say 2001, and they so that would have been 5 years after the crash. So like there's just something to like the timeline, the timing and that kind of thing. And so I do wonder if, and we know that like Ty and Van came to the wedding. It seems like they were still together at that point in time because they kind of joked about being at the wedding and the pen with the naked lady when you flip it upside down, that kind of thing. So I do wonder, yeah, if something might have happened at the wedding, because that would be kind of the one time we do know that they all came together again. And I'm just curious as to what that could be. But I mean, I'll take anything. I do think they need another season though to kind of wrap things up. If they just spend the next 3 episodes like wrapping it all up from here, that would be kind of disappointing. I think we're going to be missing a lot of crucial information.
Showtime. This is going to be a cult series. It already is. If you don't want to put the money forth now, which you already have, actually, they put so much money for it. That's probably why they're doing it. But listen, it will play the long game run with this show. It's 25 years, okay? Just give it 25 years. I have a question, Erin. Yes. This Honey Crispy says, I wish we could heard the comments. Is that an button thing we can make happen?
I don't think so. I don't think we have that feature.
Okay.
There's okay, like so a little heart thing down in the corner, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah, on my on actual the YouTube when in the chat it says if you click on like the options, I think it says when like during the chat in those little dots, it says reactions and time stamps. Yeah, and I think maybe you have to click reactions on your personal chat.
I don't know. I don't have that one over here, but okay. I'm just watching the chat from in the StreamYard. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think YouTube allows it, but you can drop a chat in the or drop a heart in the chat. So all right, so let's go ahead and get started and get into it. So Miss Mandy, would you care to read our, why does this keep happening?
I am once again asking for Yellowjackets season 4 renewal announcement. Wait, let's just keep saying it.
The wrong thing. Every time I click it, it's bringing up the wrong picture. What is happening? StreamYard.
It's kind of like if the wilderness hears us and we hear the wilderness, I once again am asking for a Yellowjackets renewal. Like let's everybody together
type it in the chat. All right, Mandy, after you.
Croak. The Yellowjackets face the consequences of their actions. Misty pursues a new suspect, many new suspects really, but encounters an unexpected turn. Thaisa's growing desperation reveals hidden aspects of herself.
Beautiful. So let's see.
No. Was that Peter or just in time for Easter or Star?
Peter, pumpkin eater, Peter Rabbit. I don't know.
Had a wife and couldn't keep her.
I feel
poor Jeff.
Oh, poor Jeff, indeed. All right. And we had some bumpin' jams this episode. I've been skipping the music, Mandy's music corner, while I didn't have Mandy with me for the last couple episodes. So Mandy, what's our jam this week? Hold on. Is it popping? Of course, it's not popping up the right thing. Pop this add to stage.
Just want to fly.
Come on.
Put your arms around me, baby. Arms around me, baby. All right. So let me tell you about this song. This song was like number 1 in 1997. for quite some time, and it's just one of their most popular songs. It also is about losing a mother. I mean, and so it's so perfect for the episode, because when she's making the tape and she's like, I'm here, and if you ever get this, I want to, I really love you. And some of the lyrics from the song, let me just pull them up so I can just make sure I don't mess up the lyrics. Like, it says, all around the world, we're talking about the Zeus and Kodiak symbolism, which we're going to get into later. Like, all around the world, statues crumble for me. Who knows how long I've loved you? I've loved you the whole time, right? She says, everywhere I go, they stop and they see it. 25 years old. So 25, we got again. My mother, God rest her soul.
Good point.
So then the next verse is, dance, little stranger. Show me where you've been. Where have the Yellowjackets been? And then we get that where they show them where they've been. And love can make you hostage, want to do it again. Just how the love for Melissa and Shauna going after that, like the love for the frogs, making them hostage. They have to do it again and again. But there's no time to think about the starting or the end of the chase of the thing. But we'll find out, I'm told. My mother, she told me so. So, I mean, there's so much into that. My mother, she told me so. Are we going to get like the mother with Callie and Shauna's journals, Van calling out to her mother? We got mothers in the chat. Let's go. I don't know. I just think that these lyrics, I just want to fly. They just want to fly out of here. You know what I mean? Like it's just symbolically perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting high. I mean,
very true.
Yeah.
And speaking of fly, yes. Well,
wait.
we had the whole Zeus theme going on, which of course, I just shout out to the people who have been in my comments this past week who are like, why do you always talk about the Greek stuff? Why do you always bring up the Greek stuff? Well, because Joel McHale showed up in episode 7 and started telling a story about Zeus, okay? So please ask me again why I talk about the Greek stuff. It's there. It's part of the story.
Why don't you start looking up the Greek stuff so that you can put it together, 2 + 2. And we also talk about narcissism. We talk about chakras. We talk about Carl Jung and therapy and religion and Bible. And we talk about ancient Judaism. So where you been? Why are you going to hate? Why are you going to hate?
Exactly. The Greek stuff is everything. Indeed. It's Joel McHale's fault. Aaron talks with fault. You know what? Exactly. Like, blame him.
Yeah.
Blame him for my psychosis. But so we had this crazy. Okay, so let's get into it. First and foremost, this episode was directed by Jennifer Morrison. It was written by Ashley Lyle, Bart Nickerson, and Alicia Brophy. And Jennifer Morrison also directed episode 5, either 4 or 5. Sorry that I don't have that spot on, but she's a well-known. She's actually a well-known actress. She was in Once Upon a Time. So anyhow, but so getting into it. So we start out the episode. We kind of do a bit of a flashback. So we're going to 3 days prior to the events of Thanksgiving. The events of Thanksgiving Canada. So we have a couple of frog scientists and their guide going into the wilderness. And the frog scientists, this is Hannah and Edwin, and then their guide is Kodiak. There's a lot to say about each and every one of these characters, and we are going to get into it. And I will let you guys know I am also working on a video about them, and that should be out to you guys in the next couple of days. I'm going to record the audio probably as soon as we're done here. But so they're making their way into the wilderness, and it's a little bit unclear. One of my first questions is, how did they get there? Did they fly in and then sort of walk and start hiking in deeper, or did they sort of just hike their way all the way in there? Do they have a car somewhere parked somewhere? All of these things kind of factor into like, how far from civilization are they actually? Because there are places in national parks and that kind of thing where you do have to fly in on a small plane, like we saw the small plane that was outside the cabin. So that can, be a factor, like if these people had to fly in and then hike some distance. So that's a bit of a question, and we don't exactly have that answer, and I don't know if we're going to get that answer. But what we
Well,
do know, oh, go ahead.
the 100 miles, we did get a clue on that though, within the
Yes,
100 miles.
yes.
So
And yeah,
we'll be putting it together. We will be probably after season, but yes, we
maybe.
will
Yeah,
be.
hopefully. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get some more answers. I know that they're definitely interrogating Hannah in the next episode. So we've seen that in the trailer. But so they'll, I'm sure, find out like, how did you get in here? How far did this take you? Now, if they're hiking on foot and these are, a couple of scientists who are not trained, outdoors sort of people, then probably the furthest they would get on foot in like, I mean, 3 days. I mean, we don't even know how long they've been out there to begin with, like before they actually found the frogs and before we pick up. So we pick up at 3 days prior, but we don't know how long they've been out there before that. So, but if they were hiking on foot, like at the most in that kind of terrain, you're maybe going to get like 15 or 20 miles in, and that's being generous for that terrain for people who are untrained hikers or unseasoned hikers. Okay. Kodiak, definitely, he could probably make it 20 miles, but that's kind of your max, like, and that's on trails, right? So
I
there's
think
a lot
this
of
is
questions here.
a great comment about it, and Carl has said many good comments about the frogs and famous Greek comedy and things
Mhm.
like that, but we're all frogs in a pond, how the Greeks conceived of the ancient Mediterranean world. And when you're thinking geography, and we get the maps in this episode, and we talk much, well, there's like a floaty, sorry. It's a fairy frog. Anyway, it was very
Oh, I'm
okay.
gonna
So
read you
anyway,
guys. So I have the. This is so weird. I've had it sitting here for days, and now I can't find the book. But I do have that book, the Aesop's Fables,
yeah,
because it is one of Aesop's Fables. Randomly, of course, I have
yes,
that book. So
but
I am gonna read you guys the frog story.
we'll do that
I'm
next.
gonna have to
Let
get
me
up and find
just
my book, so you're gonna have to give me a second. But
Okay, let me finish with this then.
okay.
So, just like traveling, let's just think back in like ancient times when we had like the herders and the types of what we're doing. And we see like the cultural, like the building where the wilderness, where we go from hunters and gatherers to the agricultural people. And now we see the girls who were hunters and gatherers, and they lost their house, and now they are building this whole kind of agricultural system. I mean, it's ancient history written over and over and over. And this is part of all of it all coming together. I loved one of the comments in the house is that it's bringing it most together. This comment here by Edna saying that it reminds me of, or when combining all the religions in the wilderness and this traveling, we have all this travel. Jesus traveled back and forth before those 3 days too, which is a lot before Easter, because they don't know how so when we're talking about Easter and Good Friday, and Jesus had to travel across the sea, and he went back and forth, and they're like, how did he get there so fast? Which way did he go? Why did he go north to south? And there's like a whole pattern that is like how and what, and it's still unknown too. And there's a lot of that in Greek mythology as well. So it's all kind of connecting, but I love that this is when Misty says opinion is the wilderness between knowledge and ignorance. This is a great comment right here. And I think that mountain terrain is harder, but they're not quite. Uh, are they up all the way in the mountains, or are they in like a valley?
I mean, they're just like Hannah says that they're not high enough, so they're probably just
Mm-hmm.
traversing. I mean, they're not at the top of a mountain or anything at this point, but they're just like in the forest.
Exactly. They're probably in some sort of in between. And
Mhm.
we already know HUB, or the hub, has a network there. So, and we have mines there. So there is, we've talked about this before. There is signs of life out there. But as a teenage girl and you're lost and you don't know where the hell you are, and you think you are in hell, literally. we've made all the comparisons to being in hell and being in Sheol with this as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's quite great. But let's read Aesop's Fable. This is such a great find and comparison, Aaron. Let's get into
Yeah,
that.
well, hold on. So we'll get to it. So hold on. Give us
Okay.
a we're
Sorry, I
working our
thought
way.
you were ready.
But
I
no, no,
thought
no.
you were
I
ready.
mean, I just needed to find it because I was like, where the heck did I set that thing? It's been sitting here for days. So, okay. So we are working our way through the wilderness. Now, Edwin is a very kind of he trusts in the technology and things that he knows or feels like he can trust. He doesn't really trust in the wilderness to kind of the wilderness to provide. So we have this moment where he's struggling because he's got a sore toe, and he didn't size his hiking boots accordingly, and we can already tell that Hannah's a little bit like, hey, about Kodiak, because like who would it be? But but and obviously these two guys are complete stark opposites. Edwin is all brains where Kodiak is brawn, and Edwin trusts in technology and science, and Kodiak trusts his instincts, and
Mhm.
he can use the nature around him to survive and to make things work for him. So they're
And
sitting
that's
there, and Edwin's got a sore toe, and um, they're talking about how Kodiak has all these scars, and I think this is really relevant. So they're saying, how does he have all these scars on his body? And maybe it was a motorcycle gang. And then he says, Kodiak steps in. He says, actually, it was a Sasquatch. Now, I think this is really important, but we're gonna get to it. So and then he shoots a rabbit with his crossbow that's like kind of sitting in between Hannah and Edwin, and so the arrow goes right through them. Of course, Edwin's like, what the heck? And he shoots a rabbit, very on brand for the wilderness. And that's dinner, right? Oh, they have a guide and a personal chef, so very lucky for them. But of course, we know the symbolic importance of rabbits and bunnies to kind of the Yellowjacket story in general, especially with Jackie and Shauna and kind of their whole vibe. And we even saw with Shauna with the whole Fogwa scene where she's wearing the bunny ears of the, sort of pit girl attire, right? Okay. So all of this stuff kind of full circle coming together. Like we're seeing a lot of similar threads with Kodiak that are affecting the girls in the wilderness. So we can already see that Kodiak is like really comfortable in the wilderness. He is like one with it. He's not really intimidated by the wilderness other than like, its natural like strength. And he even says, there's tons of things that can kill you out here, and he's all scarred up. So like now I just want to remind everyone, one of the main themes of, the wilderness is like reincarnation. So there's something there. I think we're getting hints to that right off the bat. So he cooks dinner for them. Edwin doesn't want to eat the dinner. He is eating a protein bar, and he's like, dealing with his toe, and Kodiak's like, you're going to run out of those eventually. And Edwin says that there are more. He said, well, the last team who was out here hid supplies somewhere. So that's interesting because what we learn about the frogs is that they only wake up every 7 years. So the last team that would have been out there would have probably been 7 years prior. And he also makes reference to there was a team who had come out a long time ago. So I don't know if that was related to Dead Cabin Guy or if that's just, completely unrelated. But they've never gotten the frogs recorded on tape before. So that's kind of what they're out there doing. And another thing, I do want to point out about the whole like frog scene was that hang on just one quick second. Let me just pull up a picture of our little froggy friend. Um Like, first of all, okay, so these are Arctic banshee frogs. So these are a fictional frog. They're not real. And I could have told you that right from the gate because, as many of you guys know, like I'm from this area in the Pacific Northwest. These frogs are not, that's not what frogs look like around here. That's not what they look like. That's like a rainforest, more of like a tropical type frog. The frogs we have here are like toads, like they're spotty and they kind of fit in with the environment. So the frog thing was kind of weird anyways. Like the whole frog thing is a little weird. Why did they choose the frogs? We talked about this in my last episode about it potentially being birds or owls, barn owls specifically, because they have a shrieking like scream that they do, that they're well known for, but they chose to do this frog situation and frogs that are not native or even real to the environment. So I
Yeah,
really don't know. It seems like maybe that was just a tangent they had gone
they
down.
have the frogs in Puerto Rico, like the croquet frogs. They make this outrageous sound, and they also have a drink that they named after it. So it's kind of like a Lottie's thing. Snow frogs rise up. Oh, croquet. I can't pronounce it right.
Yeah.
I've been there. I should be able to. I've drank. It's been a while. But and the frogs in the swamp. I mean, there's bullfrogs. I had them all coming out of my. If y'all remember, like during season 2 when we were talking about the underworld, my pool was empty, and I had a bunch of them at the bottom of my pool, all mating as
We were doing
well.
all of this that we see right here.
Yes, but it is like a whole like metamorphosis, rebirth, transformation too,
Yes.
from the
Yeah.
tadpole.
Absolutely. And there's
And
something, like regenerating. There is, frogs are kind of also associated with like pregnancy and childbirth.
Mhm.
So, what's going on with that idea? Um
And it makes sense because she when they're out in the wild, of course, and we talked, she's feeling hot for Kodiak because he's an alpha. He's the alpha, which
exactly.
probably is why Lottie's like, you can't be here. You know what I mean? Probably she felt those vibes because I mean, I know everybody watching this show is feeling that alpha vibe from him. Okay. And then I wanted to point out there was a comment about the people losing the feet seem to be the ones that die, but also the one about when he shoots that rabbit, he talks about, the heart wants what it wants.
Mhm.
And he's giving like this whole, like, he almost took my ear off, but was it his heart? And then I
Mhm.
like this part because once he does shoot, he's like, Hannah, can you get the plates for me? And she goes, well, you can still walk. And so, I mean, there's a lot of like behind the scenes between Ben not walking and Ben's head being then served on a plate. And here are these
Interesting.
frogs, which comes to our Yellowjackets cookbook recipe. frog legs with Ben's head on a plate. So
Mhm.
if you want to get into that just for some fun. But but it's like they talk about, following he talks about the stuff and followed the buck into the woods with a bow and he never came out. Right. And then now we see him getting chased with a bow.
Yeah.
And this whole alphaness, in reverse. And I mean, it's
Well,
he's
what I
such a
took from what I thought was really interesting about him saying he walked in the woods following a buck and he never came back out. There are some real connections between Lottie and Kodiak. Like they have a
Mhm.
lot of really shared symbolism, shared parallels, and a lot of just like kind of shared stuff going on. They both have like the scars from the wilderness. The wilderness provides, he says, so like they're sort of like speaking for the wilderness or like kind of oracling, but also following a buck. Lottie has done that. We've seen her do that. She saw the buck that he was shedding his antler, so she saw like the bloody, like, kind of skin hanging off of it or whatever, which is a naturally occurring thing. But then also she saw the buck in the tunnels in her vision, and that was a vision
Mhm.
of her own death. So I think that there's something there to us. Now, if Lottie saw the buck at the time of a vision of her own death, could that potentially mean the same thing for Kodiak? And so my thought about Kodiak is that he's potentially like some sort of reincarnating, you know, being of the wilderness. And this ties into green man symbolism, the horned god and that kind of thing. And one of the things I really noticed also is in that scene when they're sitting there in the tent, um and they're talking and the camera's going back and forth between Hannah and Kodiak. He's sitting there, and through the side of the tent there's like a branch, like a shadow of a branch shining through, and it looks like an antler like growing from his head. I think that's
Yeah.
really strategic because on the other side with Hannah, she's sitting there, the branches are behind her, but one of the things I noticed is there's a bunch of water streaming down, and what it was making me think of was Mari with the dripping.
Mhm. Yeah, there was so
So
much with Kodiak and just him in the wilderness, and with the van and Jackie. I mean, I've associated him with every character, really. He is truly, I think, the embodiment of the wilderness. And then right before we get pulled the king card, I want to point out this comment though. I wanted this so bad. Like I wanted this to happen. And I mean, I was like, let it happen. Let it happen. But
maybe
anyway, and
that's
then there
what
were
maybe
packs of
that's what
threes
Cody
getting on.
wanted, the heart wants what it wants.
Yeah, there were packs of threes getting on. And during the chase, they split into, hey gang, let's split up. Like every time I hear this, I always think of like Scooby-Doo, especially with Aquila, Misty, and Travis when they were hunting him. Hey gang, let's split up. Let's go into threes. And we're gonna it's gonna start right now. We have a lot of dualism. We
Mhm.
have like this dark character, Thaisa, her inner self is one, but then Van and Thaisa, and we have Shauna and Melissa, and we had Coach Ben with Misty, and now that's gone, so now a couple people are gone. We have to start going into threes. They're starting to triangulate against each
Mhm.
other, which is also what a term for narcissistic abuse is, when people start to triangulate, like you go this way, I'll do this, or whatever.
Mhm.
But I did really want to see them doing that. And yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's
I'm,
an
I'm, I'm
interesting.
a perv. I'm a perv.
Well, I mean, they're setting it up for like, something to happen. And there is this interesting dynamic, but that's part of like who Edwin's character is. He rejects all of that stuff. So he is a
The whole
rejecter of the wilderness traditions, the wilderness rituals. And who have we seen that in the past with? Because we have seen that in the past. Those who reject the wilderness rituals are typically the ones who don't last very long at all. So we saw that with
Mhm.
Jackie, we saw it with Javi, we saw it with well, I wouldn't say Crystal. That was something else entirely, but maybe I don't know. But even with Coach Ben, like
Crystal doesn't
they don't want
exist.
they don't partake in the wilderness games. It's like Rudolph is how always feel when I'm talking about this. Um, but like they don't
Yeah.
participate in the wilderness games or the wilderness traditions because they are connected still to society and to like society's rules and that kind of thing. And they're still playing by those rules versus, adapting and listening to your instincts, which is what Cody
Yeah.
said. You have to follow your instincts now. We're not going back to camp to get supplies. We're surviving on instinct now. And so that's part of, what you've got to do to survive out there. So,
Yeah. I feel
but
really
one of the
attacked
things, oh, go ahead.
right here. I feel attacked by this comment because I live in Texas and I'm a Christian and I'm a horny. I mean, listen, we're not cast the first stone, okay? We're not all perfect, but
So
anyway,
one of the
let's
things
just go.
that I really noticed too is, Edwin and Hannah take this frog, like we have pictured here. So they take like a sample or whatever, like a specimen to take back for studying, which, really is pretty messed up, like when you kind of think about it. But they put him in this
Mm.
jar and then they lock him in there. And that's just really like a microcosm of a lot of things that are going on out there, whether it be just the people being in an unnatural environment or actually more specifically than that would be Pit Girl, where she's trapped in a pit that she can't get out of. So,
So now's a good time also to talk about how I love to do my what's in a name segment. Like croaking is not being able to breathe. It's also when you make a hoarse sound. It also means when you other people kill someone. Like when we went out and we croaked somebody. It's actually like a thing. It's also like you're cawing when they're doing the chase. Caw, 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 speaking harshly, thickly, hoarsely. But in the the archaic versions of croaking means like it's a prophecy of evil or misfortune, especially unjustifiably and to the irritation of others. Without croaking, it may be observed that our government is upon a dangerous experiment, is where it was what Oxford Dictionary used as that. But croaking means to die, pass away, lose one's life, expire one's last breath. You know, it says lay down one's life, where we see her laying down. Be lost. It also means to go the way of the flesh. So we're talking fleshly and mating and all this mating symbolism. One, to meet one's maker. Are they meeting the maker? Are they mating Zeus? Are they meeting the maker? You know, it says to cross the great divide. Here they are crossing this great plain, these great divides. It also means to cross the river Styx. And when you see Lottie, or we see Van and Thaisa walking into camp, finding the camp during the chase, I'm pretty sure Van is breaking a stick. And well, you know, we'll talk about that later. It says, and also like to kick the bucket. We talk about the shit bucket hill. So you're kicking the bucket, bite the dust. Thaisa's eating the dust, flatline. Later on, we see Van flatlining. Turn up one's toes. We see her turning up the toes. Cash in one's chips. We see Shauna going to buy chips. You know, shuffle off mortal coils. It just talks about
Interesting.
It's really, yeah, look it up, Oxford Dictionary, what the meaning of croak means. And you're going to see that there's to go bung, to exit deceased, put a hand in one's dinner pail, what Lottie was doing with with his head. So there's so many things about the definition croak that they've used in here. Loved it. Brilliant. Great job, writers.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, this was just great writing all around because, you know, one of the things about Joel McHale's character is that was kind of I don't know if they had his character specifically planned out, but I do know that Ashley Lyle ran into Joel McHale, like, you know, within the last couple of years, at a concert, and she was really excited to meet him, and they were chatting, and he said he liked the show, and so she's like, I'm gonna put you in the show, I'm gonna write you a character. And he just thought they were kind of like joking around or whatever, but then like a couple months later or something, she hit him up and he was like, oh my gosh, I thought you were joking. And I'm curious, like, was this a character they already had in mind that they were going to write up and flesh out, or did they make this character specifically for him? I don't know, but either way, like, I just think he's killing it in the role of Kodiak. I just think it's so interesting.
Wait, so
I just like him a lot.
I love it. I'm smitten. Like, I think just she was smitten running into him. I mean, who isn't? Who isn't? If you've seen his stand-up shows or whatever. I mean, he's just he's captivating. He's charismatic. He's a great. He's 100. He's 110 in my position. But I think it's great because did anyone expect this from his character after all of the things that we talked about, after all of the, like, who could he be, what could he be cast as? We were like, FBI agent, this type of person, or he's coming back, is he Shauna's son? Like, we don't, you know, we've heard the outrageous things, but never once were we like, he's the wilderness guy that could be Zeus, because we also have a lot of Zeus symbolism we represent with Jeff, right, for example. And so we're never thinking that. But that's also why, you know, whether they wrote it or not, you can take so many characters from mythology and just, you could add it in. And they mix a lot of characters too with the mythology stuff. But I really think that it was great. And I thought that Hannah's character would be more, I really hope we see more of her too. And she needs a storyline as well, because just how it happened, and it would be fun to see, like, Hannah rising up, like him. It's just, he shows up.
I have some thoughts about this.
Is he the hunter? Is he the guy, dead cabin guy? Because I kind of was thinking this week too. Wait, is maybe Edwin or what's his name? Edgar. Is it Edgar Edwin? Maybe he was the dead cabin guy. I've been waiting for you. Maybe this was Joel. Like, I mean, that could have been the actual all full rounded circle that we're missing, or that we're gonna get. It would be really cool. Really, really cool. And Cupid uses the poison arrow. I love this, that they had these arrows with the feathers. Are, you know, infect us with love, lust, and desire. But so something about the feathers, and when they're trying to shoot off Misty's head, I love that particular point, because like when Perseus goes and he's trying to chop off Medusa's head. They can't really see it, but he knows the direction she's in. He can't really see her, but she jumps down, right? But like that's kind of how Medusa did it, and she couldn't. And Misty loses her glasses, and she couldn't see. But then in the future, in present day, Misty's starting to see clearly. So I love, and they had so much juxtapositions of like opposite parallel stories of the characters, what they're going through in '96 to the future, which we'll talk about when we get to the future. But like that particularly with me also, fed into that mythology. It fed into Joel's character, and it fed into like, okay, here we are, someone like Misty Medusa, who's always creeping around, and her stare and her glaze, like the whole like, like whatever she does comes out. And here he is just shooting her, trying to chop off her head too. I love
I have a lot of thoughts about the feathers, but I'll save those. I'm gonna try and save them for my video because I have there's something there. But and it ties to Melissa as well. But before we get too much further, I do want to read this to you guys. And one thing I do want to say, and like Mandy just said, but it's something we've talked about many times. It was always Zeus. It's always been Zeus. There's something very Zeus going on because we have all this symbolism of the underworld going on. We have the Zeus being an air god, a sky god, and we have the girls crashing in on a plane. And so when we think about the whole Persephone theory, because there is, everyone's pretty much familiar with the Persephone theory at this point, as far as Jackie and the pomegranate and all this kind of stuff. When we think about all of that, how it all fits together and the myth itself, Zeus is the one who said, he gave the okay for Persephone to marry Zeus, despite her mother even knowing about it or Persephone's opinion on the situation. But she basically, Hades goes to Zeus and he's like, I want to marry your daughter, Persephone. And he says, okay, fine. And he doesn't even like ask, questions or anything like that. But that essentially like sends Persephone into the underworld. So there's this whole kind of theory that's been going on throughout the series with that. And so there's always been something really Zeus to me about the idea of them coming in on a plane crash and crashing into this area. And then all of a sudden they're sort of bound to the underworld that is taking place there. So I love that they brought this myth up, but let's go ahead and read it. And this is one of Aesop's fables. And this is the Aesop for children. So I read it to my kids. So, but I think it'll be a little, easier for us to understand and then take some big points from it because I do have some ideas here. So this is called The Frogs Who Wished for a King. The frogs were tired of governing themselves. They had so much freedom that it had spoiled them, and they did nothing but sit around croaking in a bored manner and wishing for a government that could entertain them with the pomp and display of royalty and rule them in a way to make them know that they were being ruled. No milk and water government for them, they declared. So they sent a petition to Jupiter asking for a king. Jupiter is the Roman equivalent of Zeus. Jupiter saw what simple and foolish creatures they were, but to keep them quiet and make them think they had a king, he threw them down a huge log, which fell into the water with a great splash. The frogs hid themselves among the reeds and grasses, thinking the new king would be some fearful giant. But they soon discovered how tame and peaceable King Log was. In a short time, the younger frogs were using him for a diving platform, while the older frogs made him a meeting place where they complained loudly to Jupiter about the government. To teach the frogs a lesson, the ruler of the gods now sent a crane to be king of Frogland. The crane proved to be a very different sort of king from old King Log. He gobbled up the poor frogs right and left, and they soon saw what fools they had been. In mournful croaks, they begged Jupiter to take away the cruel tyrant before they should all be destroyed. How now, cried Jupiter, are you not yet content? You are you not entertained? You have what you asked for, and so you only have yourselves to blame for your own misfortunes. And the moral is, be sure you can better your condition before you seek to change it. So we can take a lot from that. Now, and actually this has been a story that's been discussed a lot because it kind of it's about those libertarian frogs, right?
Well, let me tell you, Book club mention. This reminds me, since Going Rogue by Shauna Palin. I mean, sorry, Sarah Palin. That's what I just couldn't. Yeah, I could not help but like add that kind of joke in there. I mean, I don't know. But the Going Rogue by Sarah Palin is about the rise to power of the Alaskan Native in the political system, and I mean, kind of like Shauna Palin. Let's go. She's going against Thaisa Turner. Let's
Interesting.
Shauna is paling them in. She's paling, and I mean, I'm hearing in the chat that people are like saying that it's Nat was the bad leader, but I really honestly think that was going to be Shauna and Shauna's decisions, what she's making now. She's leaving her loved ones behind. She's just like, when Melissa got shot, she was to me, I felt like she was like, how dare you hurt my toy? How dare you break my toy? I'm going to break you. Instead of oh my God, Melissa, I love you. I need you. My poor baby. No, she's like, she went to go do it. And Erin and I discussed that, Erin argumented a good point that she was like, she's got to take the lead like that. But again, I think that personally is not the type of judicious lead we need, like the frog story. So, but anyway, go ahead and go deeper into what you were gonna say.
That's kind of when it comes. So then we look at it and we're like, okay, so King Log clearly seems to be Natalie, because Natalie's not a necessarily combative person. She's been a fairly peaceable leader, to the point where the other girls, they start to climb all over her and complain about government. They're like, we could do better. I could do better. Thaisa thinks she could do better. Jen, pushes her as she like walks past her. So they don't have a lot of respect for Nat and sort of her, like, she has such a strong moral compass that she's not trying to lead them into some sort of contentious place. Whereas obviously, like, she's trying to kind of hold on to societal rules and not fully descend into madness by just, executing Coach or what have you. And so that was kind of, what keeps, because of that, they looked at her as a weaker leader, and they wanted someone more strong. But obviously we know Shauna is like too much. She goes too far. She doesn't reel it in. And one of the things I noticed about Shauna throughout this episode is I kind of feel like she just does things now because she can, because she wants to. She's fully operating off of, like, she just does what she wants because she feels like she can, because of what happened to her child, because of what happened to Jackie, and all of these little things where she feels like she's already paid the price. And that's why she's always felt like she should have been the leader, even going back to season 2. She feels like she kind of prepaid for that position, but she's also like not really proven herself to be responsible or anything like that. Now, she did actually, I feel like in that moment in the last episode when they after Coach had been killed, and then they were basically naming Shauna their leader, and she had been going really aggressively against Natalie, until basically right in that moment where Lottie said, no, Shauna will lead us. And then I think she kind of dialed it back a little. She was like, okay, well, we're going to honor Coach. We're going to have a feast, and as punishment, Natalie's going to prepare the feast. And yes, that is a really psychotic punishment to put someone through. But rather than, I feel like in those moments prior to Lottie like saying that, Lottie saying Shauna will lead us, I feel like Shauna was about to go out for blood. She was going to go after Natalie because she said, there's only one thing that we can do. And then Lottie stepped in. Shauna will lead us. So it's like, we don't know that one thing that Shauna said she was going to do. So anyway, going against these two. So we know Shauna is like really vicious. She'll do things just because she can. And even when she found Hannah later, she like goes up to her and she's like, ready to retaliate for Kodiak shooting Melissa. And I don't think that was anything personal about her relationship with Melissa as much as it was just like, someone's going to pay. You got to pay. Everybody's got to pay. You do something wrong, you got to pay. Like, she is just that cut and dry. She is King Stork. But one more layer to this. Now, like you said earlier, with Hannah being an older figure, someone who's maybe a little more level-headed, and that kind of thing. What if she comes in And because of like the chaos that has sort of been, kicked up because of the whole, Lottie killing Edwin sort of situation, like maybe Hannah becomes a sort of leader figure. And what if that really rubs Shauna the wrong way? What if she's like, what if actually Hannah is now, King Stork, for better?
So that's what I was saying. So in the
Yeah.
tents, and when someone mentioned this earlier, they were playing cards and they were flipping them. And we did. I'm telling you, Joel is the king card. And I think Hannah is going to come in and she's going to get, Jen likes her. She's going to be a healer. She's going to have some words of wisdom. She was wearing purple, by the way. She was wearing like the heliotrope type thing. And she had a blue knapsack and kind of like these tools that like ancient prophets or kinds of things. Like her outfit was very interesting when it comes to what leaders have. But I do think that with Shauna, though, like Shauna is gone rogue, and she did. And even Nat says to her, "You can't go rogue. You can't just decide to do this." And she's trying to base anything on this is a narcissistic psychopathic tendency, is blame shifting and justification of their behaviors of things instead of calling from the group. And Shauna did know that it was going to be like that. She knew that if she killed Nat, or if she killed Unjust, that's why she didn't kill Ben, but she hurt him. And I think she's going to hurt Hannah too. And she's going to come up with some sort of manipulation, like she always does, some sort of lies and things, and withholding information. Another narcissistic quality. They withhold all information, like she withheld from Ty the crucial information that Nat knew, but then sprung it up on her when it was necessary. So they're going to do that again with Hannah, and I foresee that. And I think Hannah is that she was in the log. I mean, she was completely in the log. How could she not be the log now at this point? And I think that symbolism's there. But like, let's talk about also the rogue and the red chakra, which we always, with the dirt, and we've always put with Shauna.
Let's get caught up first with the story before we jump ahead into that.
Well, I just want to. It like gives her that tailbone. It's like she's the chakra is like associated with the primal instinct, strength, vitality, and it's her it's the nurturing support of the natural world, but like her nurturing support has been ripped from her. And then the red chakra is that energy that was ripped from her, like her child, that centers the body with influences that physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Shauna's chakra, which is the rogue, is now literally, she's got to be the spine. She's got to be the one that carries, and she's taking this whole new freedom into a going rogue, which also, when you do it in the sense of the military or in any political way, you get in trouble. So yeah, she is going to get in trouble. And I think that way she's acting and what she's been teaching to Melissa is probably going to be the one that goes back on her and teaching that same behavior, the way she teaches Callie behavior too. She's the mother, and the children that she's influencing are starting to now act like her. You know what I mean? Y'all feel it?
This comment.
Okay, watch that.
I just watched Community for the first time today. I think Kodiak's gonna sue the girls. Anyways, okay, so let's get into this. So basically they're back at the camp, and Edwin is really paranoid of Kodiak. One of the things that's really interesting is that night, it's the night of Thanksgiving, he decides to go through Kodiak's stuff, which is like invasion of privacy much. But he pulls out a coat that has the name Eric Chong on it. And we don't know who that is, but he's, Edwin is extremely concerned by this. He's like, I don't know, why does he have someone else's clothing, yada, yada. And Hannah's like, maybe he got it secondhand, whatever, no big deal. One thing I will point out, I was listening to Yellowjackets Hive, her podcast this morning, and she said that that in the behind the scenes photos for season 3, there was a sweatshirt that had the name Eric on it. I might even have a picture of it, but I'm not going to try and find it right now. But that's really interesting. So I don't know if maybe that could be related to that, if it's the same Eric. Maybe there was an Eric on the plane. Maybe Kodiak somehow found the plane crash, site and took some supplies. Although I don't really see, well, sorry, I'm just kind of coming up with this right now as I'm speaking. But maybe okay, so we know that the girls, after the cabin burned down, and probably several times sort of throughout that we haven't really seen, but they probably went back to the plane to get supplies. Now we know after the cabin burned down, they definitely went to the plane and got supplies because they have a lot of pieces of the plane back at their camp. But maybe at some point, if Kodiak has been out in the wilderness, maybe he went to the plane and there were some supplies there and he got that coat from the plane. We don't know if there's an Eric Chong. I mean, that's not somebody who's been established to us as a Yellowjacket or someone who was on the plane, but it's just an idea. It's just a thought.
So I just Googled. There is an Eric Chong from the 90s. He was the first ever MasterChef Canada winner, from an inspiring path of chemical engineering to winning the first season of MasterChef Canada. And now he's one of Toronto's most innovative chefs. That's with the Eric with a C. But yeah. Hey.
Okay.
So I mean, it could be like some pun to some.
Kodiak it could be some personal chef, so maybe there's something there.
Some horticultural stuff, chemical engineering with all of the gas.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the horticulture thing, I grew it myself. Like, please, I'm sorry, bro is the wilderness. Like, I'm sorry. Okay, like, so we're on the same page. Everyone's on the same page. I believe that Kodiak is the embodiment of the wilderness. Like, that's my, like, whatever. They can take that away from me. They can try and make this seem like it's not. One of the things, like, that I've seen a lot of people saying is that the frogs prove that nothing was supernatural. Absolute BS. The frogs do not prove that nothing was supernatural because they've been experiencing supernatural things since season 1. And the frogs have been hibernating since season 1. The frogs weren't out last summer, so they didn't hear them last summer. So the only supernatural element that the frogs brought to season 3 was the screaming sound, which, that is weird, but there's a lot of animals who make a lot of screaming sounds and maybe have like specific like hibernation, like cicadas, they only wake up something like every 17 years or something like that. So like this idea that like that the frog screaming was the only supernatural thing that the girls ever experienced, I'm sorry, this does not resolve that issue for me. And if you guys are familiar with my podcast and my channel, we strongly believe in like the supernatural elements, or at least exploring those elements to their full extent. And and it's not only that, it's like it comes into play in a lot of different ways because the girls are thrust into this situation where they have to adapt and survive. And it's interesting how the societal elements just go out the window, like when you're forced into this situation where you don't really have a lot of other options. And so like this idea of like, why are they cannibalizing and that kind of thing? Well, like pagan cultures from all over the world were cannibalizing, and it wasn't just out of like survival, nutritional necessity. It was ritualistic. It was to honor others, like Shauna had said. And what really stopped that on a global scale was the spread of Christianity, because Christianity and God, Jehovah God, said, we don't do the sacrifice. You don't need to do human sacrifice. We're not doing that anymore. I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want those. Please live.
They're not sufficient. They weren't sufficient.
Yes.
They weren't sufficient for his grace.
Keep your food, keep your lives, keep your livestock. Live and take care of yourselves and take care of your neighbors. And I don't want those sacrifices anymore. And so on a global scale, then as global expansion was happening and people were exploring into these different cultures and different areas and that kind of thing, and they're seeing all these cultural examples of cannibalism or ritualistic, sacrifice and that kind of thing happening all over the world. Well, like it was Christianity that kind of stopped all of that. And so it's interesting when we kind of like explore this idea um of like these girls don't really have any other options. They kind of are
So
adapting and
yeah.
surviving on their own. And so it's kind of like, what why did they so quickly like go to that point? Why do when why are there so many like modern examples of this? Like, why did the Donner Party do this? Why did the guys in the Andes Mountains do this? Why are the Yellowjackets doing this? Because it's just human nature at its most raw form. And
Exactly. And it's
yeah,
been the question of humanity since the beginning. Is it science or humanity? Is it God or us that control? Who is in control? Is it God's plan, or is it a bigger plan, or are we actually just, pawns on the table? And are we actually in control? And
yeah.
it is this whole sacrifice, and it is the, like you said, like they try to stop that because it wasn't eating the other people. It was the will to go the distance for your beliefs, and I just want to make it clear, like, Jesus died and gave his body and he gave his blood as a sacrifice, as a self-sacrifice for forgiveness of others. It was due to a betrayal. It was due to people hurting them. And he said, not quote for quote, but it was more like, God, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. And is praying for himself, but praying for his enemies, and praying for the people that want to do these things, and it's a deeper thing. It's a willingness to go the distance. And like, where they asked Abraham, like, for his firstborn son, are you going to go sacrifice him for me? And then God says, no, you don't need to do that, because you shown that you were going to do that, and the first sometimes are the last, and the last become the first. So you don't know. And despite them needing to eat right now where they are, it isn't a primal survival thing. Now we are at that ritualistic point of view, and now it's been taken into a control political sense where they are just trying to gain order or gain something from it. Lottie went rogue, and she literally rogue on her cheek with the guy's blood. She's whispering, you will understand later. I mean, we'll see, but I understand it. It's very complex. You got to do your own research. We can't do all your research for you, but it's also something that is personal to everybody, just like when you take sacrament in church, when you take, your communion, it's a personal thing. So just how when all of them ate Jackie or whatever, they all had their personalness to it. But with Ben, it was a personal thing about revenge. It wasn't about, forgiveness. It wasn't about, well, this is what we need for the better good. This is about revenge. So there's that heart, back to the heart gets what it wants. So their heart was not there. The real heart, like the heart, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna say the heart of Jesus, when he sacrificed, when he did it. Ben was willing to sacrifice, and Nat helped, and to me that makes Nat still, in my mind, the queen, because she's doing the things that they don't want to do versus pushing and over conquering, because you're taking things that aren't yours. You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my
and also
Mandy
Nat,
monologue.
she's not. I agree. Like I think Nat is still like the queen, if not in name, like just her actions. She's always going to be that moral compass for everyone. And also, like that was the thing with Coach. Like she loved him like a father, and she wasn't going to continue to allow him to suffer. And what's so ironic about the situation in the end is like Coach, they were so concerned about destroying hope for the team and hope of getting home, and Coach being the bridge. But at the end of all things, like Coach is the bridge. Like if he hadn't if Nat hadn't have killed him, they didn't have this celebration, this feast, they wouldn't necessarily be hooting and hollering and making a bunch of noise to attract attention and attract the smells of others, who are, other people nearby. So Coach sort of was the bridge, he drew
Yeah.
these people in. And so by his death, he was the bridge. But,
So
and there's so much
also,
to it. And so it's like, will the group recognize that as far as Natalie is concerned,
yeah.
going forward?
So also another thing is so after the disciples, when Jesus died, the disciples were nowhere to be found, right? After he came out of the cave, right? Coach came out of the cave. So they left him, and it was like 3 days or something like that. And they were all gathered, and they all started speaking in tongues and making sounds and noises and all that. And they breathed in, and there was a fire, their fire. So each of them were carrying their flame torches and kind of things like that. So it's kind of interesting. They have fire above their heads. So in the prophecy, or in the Bible, it talks about how they start speaking in tongues and hooting and hollering and, kind of making sounds, and they have the flames, and the Spirit is brought in. The Holy Spirit comes through the nose. In the valley of dry bones with Ezekiel, you breathe in life through your nose. Like God brings it through the smell. And yeah, I mean, so the smell is such an important thing with this situation, because that's what they're like, oh, I smell the barbecue. I smell the soap. So I smell the barbecue. Is that a metaphor for they're literally burning their bridges?
Yeah,
Quote
good point.
unquote.
Good point.
But
Yeah. That's interesting. Actually, that's a really good point. I like that, because that's something I talked about in the last one. It was like, the bridge is burning. Like if coach is if he's the bridge, then like it's being held together by a fraying rope that like Shauna just, cut through. But yeah, like this idea that, yeah, they burned their bridge. It was like, if they believed that Coach was that, then that's a great point. But these people were still able to cross into the threshold, which we did see when they kind of cross into the first symbol tree. So as
I
Hannah
think
is like saying, I need to keep an eye out for tadpoles.
I think
Again,
this
some
is
of
a
that reincarnating symbolism, that
mhm.
regeneration symbolism. But yeah, so they wander into the
There
camp, and like, let's be real, because I asked my husband this. I was like, if you and Mason, my stepson, I was like, if you guys were out camping or whatever, because they go out. I mean, we live in Alaska. I think most of you guys know this, but we live in Alaska in the wilderness. I was like, if you and Mason were out hiking and camping and doing whatever, and you like came across this scene, like, what would you do? And he was like, I would look at Mason, I would tell him, "Don't say a word," and I would just try and back out of there as quietly as possible and not draw attention to myself, because no, there's no way that I would like enter that situation. I would not walk into that. And granted, Blair Witch Project didn't come out until 1999, so like these people don't have that as a frame of reference, but like I just think that it's, maybe just common knowledge. You just don't wander into like a witch's, like clearly this is like a witch coven, like dancing underneath the full moon or something. Like you just don't, it is not a good idea to like just wander into that situation. And what's also really funny is like looking back, and there was that scene with
okay.
Ty and Van in Did Ty Do That? And their whole vibe that episode for me was like very Deliverance. Like they're just dressed all like hillbilly, and they're out there like banging in the woods and like, coming up with all these like weird ideas to how to like manipulate the wilderness and all this kind of stuff. It was just very Deliverance to me. And so I just think it's really funny that like this kind of plays into that. Like you just don't wander in to like when you're out in the wilderness like that, you just don't wander into like unknown scenes,
Uh
people you
Private
don't know. I
property.
mean, I don't know. You don't
They
wander
have
into
like
that.
ropes, and I think like purple trees and signs on trees that literally say that if you wander in this, you're trespassing, or that's where you'll get shot if you're a hunter
Yeah,
too, I think.
yeah. You
I
can wander
think
into
that
someone's like illegal grow op, or like
yeah.
just some weird rednecks, some weird Sasquatch. I could go in the Bubbles tone. You find yourself a Sam Squanch and some grizzly cocksuckers. you
Yeah,
know?
that's good. And I like this comment. It could be the bridge taking them. Prophetic vision could have been tricky because it's still their burnt offering, which Carl says in the chat. That it could be the bridge taking them further to the deeper levels of hell, and that could be the bridge that brought Kodiak out. And
Mhm.
and I like this comment too, that he got killed because Kodiak is jealous, and who else is jealous? And Zeus is a very jealous god, I think that it's Canada ass massacre, but
Mhm.
that whole situation with what they should have done, I'll tell you what really was a good movie and what was out at that time was Run, Forrest, Run. Okay, they're in the forest. Forrest got 1994 or 3 or something. I think 4. Okay,
Yeah.
come on. Run, Forrest, Run. Like, if I just saw that, it's not like, oh, hey, hey guys, you guys want to
Mhm.
share? Like, I've been watching The Last of Us too recently, just catching up on that on HBO. And I'm like, where they come into other people in the middle of the random forest,
Mhm.
yeah. I loved
You just gotta be
basically
careful.
basically Kodiak said it best. You wanting to go to camp shows me you have no survival skills. Run. Just
Exactly.
run.
Exactly. We're surviving on instinct now.
Yeah, life
Yeah,
is like
and so the
a box of Kodiaks. You never know what you're gonna get. Maybe he's a shapeshifter. Maybe there's a shape-shifting like entity. Maybe we're going back to the Wendigo. I mean, I can't say it. Should we say it?
Let me be clear, the Wendigo and the Huachuga, neither one of them have any shapeshifter symbolism connected to them, and I am already
Okay,
educated on this
fine.
because of my other project that I'm working on, but I already double checked into that.
But there are shape-shifting entities out there like that in
Well, that's my thought. So
Sasquatchy.
I think that Kodiak would be a more of an original character to Yellowjackets lore or to the wilderness, but I think that his inspiration comes from like green man symbolism. But I did double check that the Wendigo and the Huachuga, that neither one of them had that shape shifting symbolism, and neither one of them do.
There is the like
So
this tall, like the tall man, or like this children predator that's shaped like a tree.
the Slender
Um,
Man. Is that what you're thinking of?
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too. Somebody I think had mentioned that in my
It
comments.
was me a long time ago too. We talked about it, and I used to know, but I don't know now. Not today.
Yeah.
Not today, Slenderman.
Not
Not
today, Slender
today,
Man.
Satan.
One thing I do want to point out is as Edwin and Hannah and Kodiak are approaching the camp or approaching the girls, the music that's playing is the same music that plays during the ritual at Lottie's Wellness Center, which we've talked about several times here on the stream, how that ritual that she was doing with the people in the white robes and the animal masks seem to be heavily inspired by their experiences in the wilderness. Um, and I think that this Thanksgiving event is kind of what is the full inspiration for that, which is really interesting because that explains why Natalie had such a sort of visceral reaction when she saw that. And this is going back to season 2. Yeah, she was like, what the hell? And she goes to Lottie and she's like, give me one good reason I shouldn't cave your head in with this stick and throw it in that hole. And so like the parallels are parallel. There was a lot of parallels going on. So
So,
let me just
so
let me give you guys a couple. So the music in that scene I think is really important. It's the same exact music as what's going on in the ritual. There was another situation. So when Nat says to Lottie, like she interrupts the thing, and this is going to the wellness center. This is the adult timeline season 2. She says she's praying and profiting. And I was thinking the duality of that word praying and profiting. So like when Nat said it, it seemed like praying like PREY and profiting PROFITING. But in reality, like if we're looking at the duality of this, it's she's praying PRAY and profiting PROPHET, you know? So like there's some duality going on there. Give me one good reason I shouldn't cave in your head with this stick and throw it in that hole. Um, the whole like the whole scene, that whole ritual is a reenactment of everything that they're doing at the Thanksgiving scene. But then we also have Lottie's therapy sessions that she was doing in season 2. And she tells the therapist at one point, she says, "We hurt each other, people died." And then at another one, she says, "The God of that place, we did terrible things in its name." So, like, there were so many moments of this going on back in season 2, or so much foreshadowing to what's happening now. And I mean, it's really intense. Like when you think about um, what Lottie is reenacting and using it as a sort of wellness treatment, or what she interprets as such. Um, Pretty intense stuff going on. And this scene with Edwin, like Lottie's been struggling all throughout season 3 to like get in touch with the wilderness. And even in the last episode, we saw her like praying at the tree and she's like, "Please, I need to hear you. Please hear me," kind of thing. And now that after she kills Edwin and she's playing in his brain matter and blood and smearing it on her face, and like in this like what Mandy was saying about the nose and smelling, I'm like, I swear it looks like she's like doing lines of blood or something. Like it's so intense. But she's like spreading this all, and I don't know if she's like eating, like if she's eating the brains and stuff at this point or not. I really don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I hope I don't get demonetized or like taken down right now for saying this stuff. But yeah, but it's so intense. This scene that she goes into, and she finally is hearing the wilderness again, and she's saying, "I can hear it. I can hear it. You'll understand." And she's reconnecting with the wilderness in this moment. And so it's I mean, and a lot of people have
Well,
been talking about, like, on X and that kind of thing, about how she's in the throes of her psychosis. Like, she has schizophrenia, and she's fully, like, in the throes of, like, an episode here. And, yeah, that's one way of interpreting it. Yeah, for sure. And a modern that's how Edwin would interpret it. But like, on a prophet scale, on a druidic scale, like what she's doing here, and I'm not in no way, shape, or form approving of it or advocating for this behavior, but from a spiritual perspective, and again, going back to historical cultures and like even druids and that kind of thing, like where human sacrifice or cannibalism was part of their culture, like we can see Lottie having a similar experience or connecting with it in the same kind of way, right? And how she's drawing power from that. And so is that, you know, and this is one of the big things about Lottie's character is like, even going back to her childhood, like her mother didn't really believe that there was something wrong with her per se. She actually believed that she was connected to a higher power. And I talked about this in that episode with Lottie's dad as well. Like, is there a familial connection to the Eleusinian mysteries, or to a bloodline that is connected to a prophetic or oracle, or some sort of distinctive position, like we talked about her coming potentially from the Philae family, which is one of the important families who's associated with the Eleusinian mysteries, and it's through the male line. But since Lottie doesn't have any siblings, and I do suspect also that her father is being affected by this, by those sort of feelings or urges, or and he talks about being like having these meetings planned and stuff, and I'm like, oh, is he part of some kind of secret society or something connected to, you know like, we have to consider these ideas, because I mean, history is long, and
like
this current era, is short. And so like, if you have a bloodline, a familial connection to somebody who's doing this sort of thing, or has this prophetic gift, or some sort of, spiritual connection to something that's been going on for generations and centuries, for all we know, how do you just disconnect when Emperor Theodosius comes into play and says, "No, we're actually being Christian now, and I'm going to cut down Zeus's sacred tree where the
Okay.
oracle, Zeus's sacred oracle."
Let
Oh,
me love on
yeah.
that. Let me interrupt you right there. Because
Okay.
this means you're at Walt Havisham. Edwin means wealth friend. What if Edwin was the baby? Or what if Walter is the baby?
That's something that we've
Or
talked about a
Edwin
lot,
could
but
be or Edwin could be Walter's dad or something like that, but like a wealth friend. But yeah, like this whole cutting down thing and this
we're
and I want to go
sickening.
back to the profit thing. Okay, true prophets will never ask you for money. That's how you can tell from a false prophet. They will say, if you donate and give your gifts, they'll ask you for your gifts, your talents, because they know that most people don't have money. But they're in the prophet realm, everyone, there are prophetic gifts. And in these things, and then there are gifts that God gives members of the church, the community. Some have funds, other people have musical gifts, other people have gifts of teaching. There's prophetic watchers, there's prophetic seers, there's different things. And I like to think that Lottie's a seer, and she hasn't been seeing because she's been instead of giving, like, okay, for as a prophetic seer, you get a lot of visions, you get things, but when you start relying on other people for their visions, or using other people in those situations, that's her loss of the connection with the wilderness. But she saw quickly that this guy didn't believe, he wasn't supposed to be there, whatever. I mean, she could just also be a pawn for Kodiak because Kodiak needed that hand-on-ness or whatever. We'll see. But I do want to, like, that prophet thing. It's someone asked me this about my church the other day. They're like, well, do they always ask for money? Like, I said, they don't ask, but they put out an offering thing at when you leave, you can put money in the offering. But people want to do it because you want to commit to a church. And like in the old Jewish temples, everybody gave tithings, and the old tithing is that everybody put up their things together, like how we had the bowl in the previous seasons. They put tithings in, or their talents, who does what talent they're born with. One, there's the parable of the talents, which you want to talk about, is, one is given to some are given 10, and it's about what you use with them. And if you're not going to use them, then they're given to other people. And if you use them for your own profit gain versus a prophetic gain for the better good or whole of the community and the team, everyone plays a part on the team, and that unity thing. And right now they're all going rogue. So Lottie might be going back and finding and smelling and getting profits from other things. But when you enter, like, as a seer or as a prophet, when you open the realm, when you open the veil, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the veil opening with Van at the end of in adult Van, but there's that veil, right? And the connection between the two worlds, the connection between the worlds in 1996 and these people coming, the connection where they had to travel through that ridge, the veil, the planes. So they have gone through the astral plane, whether you want to believe in this or not. This is an argument from the end of time. There's no winning or losing. We all believe what we believe. It's a personal thing. But this, Travis isn't using his talents, but Akila was. But anyway, like right now, what she's doing is, when you sniff through the Holy Spirit through your nose, breathing life through your nose, she's now becoming a cannibal. Now she's now doing what she said not to do in the first place. She is going back to the animalistic nature of which men is not supposed to have. That is not the spiritual nature. You either are fleshly or you're spiritual. And that's it. Like, that's when if you want to have the Holy Spirit, you cannot be fleshly. Being a flesh is what kills your ability to connect with the Holy Spirit. And she's connecting. Okay, she's getting it. She's getting in the spiritual plane. But this right here is, we're going to bring out some demons. This right here is how she's connecting to the dark side of the spiritual realm, not what she was seeing before. Like before, when she took the mantle and the rope and the clothes of Laura Lee. Wait, Laura. Sorry, Lorelai. Laura.
Laura Lee.
Yeah, Laura Lee. Okay. Sorry, I don't know.
Laura
Lee.
time.
Yes, but she was that was true faith. That was true sacrifice. That reminded me, and the bear was like the burning bush, Moses taking on a prophetic mantle of Moses, going the distance and trying to fly into a plane and bring people and save people from a realm that they did not want to be saved. They didn't
Mhm.
know how, and now here she is. This is what is called like accessing illegally into the spiritual realm.
Mhm.
She's illegally, and which is also how she was pushing Aquila. She's a pusher now. So it's funny that you said
One of
that she's like the lines or something, because
Yeah.
she's pushing it, and this is illegally entering the spiritual realm. This is
Well,
what
and also,
prophetically we call it.
I talked about last in my last in that Thaisa video about the spiritual meat and the spiritual milk, okay? And so the spiritual milk is sort of the basics of spiritual understanding. And one of the things I thought was really interesting too, I don't know if this is like canonical to like the original, but one of the things in the frog story, they say no milk and water government for them. And that would be like relating to Nat's not really one who has delved into like the spiritual side. She sort of also kind of rejects that, or she sort of walks the line, but she's also the huntress. So there's her spirituality is a little more, it's just a little
Psychopomp.
different. But with Lottie and then the spiritual meat, which the spiritual meat I think is really connecting to Thaisa and her like carnivore cravings. But also we see with Lottie here, this is spiritual meat for her. Like she almost was hesitant, like when Javi died, and remember Misty brings her the bowl of food and she's like, she doesn't want to eat, and Misty's like, eat, you have to eat, like she's telling her to eat. And so finally she does. But that's like Lottie was like showing a little bit of resistance to the wilderness there, and so I wonder if that was some sort of pilgrimage or hermitage kind of thing that she had to go on, to where she rejected that gift from the wilderness, which was Javi. And so as payment for that, you're not going to be connected to the wilderness for a while, you're not going to hear from it. And we could relate that, on a physical level, on a non-spiritual level, to the fact that Shauna had beaten her within an inch of her life, and so she probably had some trauma from that, but also she probably has like CTE from that and has long-term
Mhm.
issues, which are probably strongly affecting this situation right here and her decision. So there's a lot kind of like playing into it, but I think that definitely like that spiritual meat is how she needed to reconnect
Mhm.
with the wilderness and with her spiritual side. And so yeah, the milk and water government, that's for the log King Log supporters, and here she's like going for King Stork, which we saw when she named Shauna as their leader. So there's
Yeah.
really something, and that was like a random find for me, and I'm so glad that I found it, because it really is like tying things together here.
She gave into what was happening. You have to give into it. And then, there are, like Jesus says, pay Rome their taxes, but pay the true taxes of God are there. But I
Yeah.
also think there is a lot with when part of the prophetic mantle is in, if you go back and read the prophets in the Bible, a lot of them do turn from God, and that is how they have to learn. And then even Jonah in the whale, someone mentioned that before. Jonah tries to run and escape. He's like, they're not going to listen to me. And then he gets spit up and goes to Nineveh, and they all do finally start to listen. I mean, but you have to know and go to that dark side to be able to relate, and then be able to teach the light side of the dark. It's about
Mhm.
finding joy, in a sense. I don't want to say finding joy in eating brains, but like I do want to say like finding the purpose in that. And part of the trials and tribulations that we go through, we must find the joy in it. We must find the purpose. We must find that there is something beyond that, and see beyond that, see the writings on the wall of these trials, of these tribulations. And I think Lottie's starting to see it. She saw the writings that Travis did on paper during the trial, in all the tribulations. She's just like, okay, this is it. I'm just going to go with it. And I have to experience what they're experiencing and do what they're going to
Mhm.
do because now I'm just like you. I'm the worm too. Like Jesus says, but I'm nothing but a worm. So she's lowering herself in a sense to be as wild, but to bring them back up. And I think
Mhm.
that this whole thing about Lottie is like, season 2, I was just so much like, yes, she is healing, and yes, there is something behind her. But I think that this does explain a lot. Like, she went truly wild, and like wild beyond, to where now she does have that ability to in the future take people from those who have done most horrendous things, like she does in this episode, and say and help lead them to a better life. And same with
Mhm.
Nat. And there was also something that I did one point, since I wasn't on the last episodes with you, is like when Shauna makes Nat uh cut up Coach Ben, and like the parallels, how Nat helped, offered and went and helped Shauna, you know, chop up
Mhm.
Adam. She offered freely
Yeah.
and willingly that sacrifice. Wasn't forced, wasn't this. And I don't think that Lottie's forcing anything. She's just starting to take action in her own hands, which she will be as a prophet. When you start to do stuff like that, God turns his face from you. And then there's many times in the Bible, and in the book of Psalms, David crying out to the Lord, how long will you keep your face turned from me? How long will you forget me? Or like, but Israel, I will not forget you. And he does turn his face. He allows you to be brought down to the lowest part where you have nothing else but to do that. So that's when you can finally get into that spirit realm again. But again,
Mhm.
in my personal opinion, she's accessing it illegally, but she's still accessing it. So the door's open, the veil's open regardless. So
Yeah.
it's really going to be interesting to see, where this goes. This shocked me completely that Lottie did that. But
That was wild. That was
and it, and it's
I didn't
Misty's
hate it. I
ex.
mean, it was fascinating to watch, but it was just like, whoa, all right, we're really going there. We are really going there. But okay, so after that all happened, so let's move on. Sorry, we're
Oh,
really taking our time dissecting through this right now.
listen, this is not
So
an episode review, okay? This is deep lore and symbolism. And
yeah,
Aaron's episodes reviews are awesome, I thought. But this is something deeper, okay? So
hey buddy, I'm live
I'm just
streaming
gonna
right
point
now.
that
Can
out.
I call you back?
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
live streaming
is
right
it the
now.
spirit realm?
It's my
Who's
son.
calling? Oh, hi,
Can I
mom.
call you back?
Call
Okay,
mom.
I love
Call
you.
mom.
Bye.
Is he in the wilderness?
I think I don't know what he's doing.
But yeah,
Um,
we're all rats in a cage. And I think it was funny
yeah.
too that Misty lost her sight during this, because I mean there's a lot of Misty and Lottie trying to figure out with Misty and Lottie, and that whole oppositional dynamic, sun and moon, and just the flip and dualism between those two right here,
Mhm.
because she does use Misty's axe. She becomes Misty for a moment,
Oh, good point. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shifting going on, yeah, between that and then like the knife, and I think we're gonna see even more of that because there's a shot in one of the trailers of Shauna using the gun. So we're probably gonna be seeing more of this transition. But all
I
right,
also
so
wait, there's
after oh go ahead.
one more thing though. So this torch thing too, when there's somebody said, so you see them in splitting and they all have their torches, and
We're
they're
gonna get to
starting
that.
to.
Hold on. Let's not get ahead of
Oh,
ourselves.
okay.
We're gonna get to it. So
All right, you.
before they take
Yes,
off
leader.
running, they go
Yes,
they're
queen.
they are all like, there's a panic that breaks out basically after Lottie does that. And everyone's like, so basically Kodiak and Hannah, they take off running, and the girls are just like, oh my gosh. And so they start chasing them. And it's this really like shocking scene. Of course, like Nat in her intelligence in the moment. She turns and she's like, clean this up. We don't know how many more of them there are. Lottie's sitting there, dabbling in the brains. Mari's trying to like put brains back in the skull. And then as they're turning to run, Kodiak turns around with his crossbow and shoots. And I don't think it was, nothing personal. He just was going for who's first. But he hits Melissa in the shoulder. with his crossbow. And so this is pretty intense. And the JV girls stay behind with her. So we have Robin and Jen. Jen and Melissa, they are like best friends. Of course, it's been a little rocky in season 3 because because Melissa's got the relationship with Shauna going on, but we can see like that's really kickstarted Jen to kind of become more of a stronger figure, I guess we might say. But anyhow, so they stay behind, they're helping Melissa. They're screaming at Lottie because they're like, they were probably trying to help us and look at what you did, kind of thing. So now they're chasing her and the girls are like struggling dealing with this wound, which is really traumatic. And to jump forward, this progresses throughout the night and they are trying to pull this arrow out. I just want to get through this Melissa stuff real quick. They're trying to pull this arrow out and they keep pulling back on it. And mind you, these are like these are designed to, kill bears, these arrows. So and my husband gave me a full hunter rundown of these arrows, of course. But basically they're like, razor blades. It's like a 3-prong razor blade. And so every time they're pulling back on it, it's, creating even more trauma in that wound. And so pushing it through probably was the only thing they could have done. They make special tools that you can like extract arrows from, with it. But it's just, what are you going to do in this situation? It was really bad. And my husband was also like, it's from that spot, it's pretty likely that they hit the lung and that her lung would be like filling up with blood. And, so like, he's like, she's not going to like, he's dead sorry. He's like, she's not going to live through that. We'll see what happens. But it is pretty gnarly and, great acting from Melissa and Jen, the actresses, Vanessa Prasad, and why can't I think of Melissa's actress right now off the top of my head? It's evading me. I can't think of it right now, but if somebody knows her name,
not worthy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I don't know either. I'm sorry. I forget. We will.
But yeah, and then Mandy, you and I talked about this. Sorry, we're just gonna wrap it up with the Melissa tangent here. But one of the things, and like, so in the morning when they come back, we're gonna come back around to that. But in the morning when everybody comes back and there's like this moment between Melissa and Shauna, and they're like looking at each other because Melissa, when she gets hit, she screams for Shauna. She says, "Shauna, don't leave me." And I'm sorry, okay. And I want to be sympathetic and empathetic to Melissa and her struggle right now. But let's be real. Your girlfriend is, this is how I see them as a Daenerys and Khal Drogo situation. Okay. Your boyfriend is Khal of Khals. Okay. So you expect that because you got hit by an arrow because you were trying to act tough, that she's just going to throw in the towel and hang out back with you and nurse your wounds? Absolutely not. Shauna is the butcher queen. She is going out and going after whatever is the, foe, right?
She is no dragon. Okay. Shauna is no dragon.
I was getting a lot of like Daenerys Drogo vibes with like their whole dynamic, because Drogo is that, he's like that like savage fighter that's like, he'll go the distance. He doesn't care who he's fighting. He just has to prove himself. And that's kind of like the mentality of the Dothraki, is just like, who has the longest braid, kind of thing. And I feel like Shauna really embodies that kind of energy where she's like, I like, who's the strongest? The strongest will rule, the strongest will prevail. And that's very much Shauna's vibe. Like, she's just, she's very Braun oriented. And so,
do you see this?
Very cool. Wild Marjoram.
Do you see this?
Mark your guys' calendar. Make sure you're subscribed to Wild Marjoram's channel. Remind me of the channel name also, because it's not your personal channel. It's a shared channel, but yeah,
Please
drop all that info in. If you can, I think you can drop links. So go ahead, Wild Marjoram, at least for the channel. But anyhow,
let's get her on here.
I just think that there was like this moment where they when Shauna gets back and they share this like look between them, and Melissa kind of looks away, and this is after the arrow's been extracted, and Shauna kind of has this like look of pride or something on her face, like she's satisfied that like they came back with their who they were hunting, and then also Melissa is alive and fine as far as we can tell. So I think that Shauna felt like she was just really feeling that big dick energy right in that moment. She feels like she's the leader and things are working out. Things that, they caught who they were seeking out and everyone's fine. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting scene. And going back to like with Shauna and with Lottie, like everyone else is like, wants to go home. They seem interested in why these people are here for that reason, to go home. Shauna and Lottie actually are not. Like, they're so, like, Lottie doesn't want to leave because when she goes back home, she has to get back on her schizophrenia medicine, and her dad treats her like garbage for her, abilities that she has no control over, and this kind of thing. And then Shauna, actually, I think, I've been sitting here thinking, like, I see these scenes between Shauna and Jackie, and now looking back, I'm like, the relationship with Jackie is not necessarily the most traumatizing thing that Shauna ever went through. I really think that it was far more traumatizing and affected her far more deeply to lose her baby, and then just like the recovery of that. So like sometimes I look back on the Jackie scenes and I'm like, Jackie, forget about Jackie. Like, she's not even relevant compared to like the other things that you've endured out there. And so it's kind of interesting, like at this point in the series, when we see those flashbacks of Jackie, I'm kind of like, is she as relevant in your psyche as like the show is painting her to be? Because I feel like they're in real life, you'd like, and that's part of like the reason like Shauna and Lottie are connecting, because they don't want to leave, because I feel like Shauna doesn't want to leave. She had her baby there, and even though he's buried in the ground, what she doesn't want to
Shauna,
leave him. She feels duty bound to like stay there, like that's her child, and I don't blame her. Like it would be really hard to leave that baby behind there and never be able to go and visit his grave or, anything like that. So yeah. So anyways, getting off on a tangent, but that's kind of
well,
what
no,
happened with Melissa.
it's not a tangent. It's what we were talking about earlier, like how Melissa, in a sense, became like this kind of JV toddler version of Shauna's baby. And, you know, yeah, but she left that. I mean, I think that it's not even like about that. I think it's more like Shauna's loss of fear, or fear of loss, and it's out of control. Like, this is just like a psychopathic tendency, is like, they were more objects about it. Like, she really, I don't know how to eloquently say what I want to say, so I just don't think I'm going to say it. But I do want to, she didn't even really have, when babies are born, you're always connected to your baby. But like when babies are born and you have that like first kind of, like, I'll just share my experience. Like, there was a traumatic birth experience for me, and my mom and other people and everyone was there, and everything was taken away from me, from just me being able to bond with the baby. But it took me about 2 weeks to actually just like bond with my child the way that a mother bonds with their child. Some people it takes longer, some people not at all. And I mean, then you see Shauna not even really bonding with Callie, and Callie like trying to bond with her. I don't think she's actually ever bonded with Jackie. I don't think she's bonded with Jeff. I don't think she has the capabilities to just have those kinds of bonds. And as much as you think that it's like, oh, we're taking it away, it's more of a selfish thing for Shauna. It's more of like, I can't have what I want, versus, I don't think she's actually feeling these feelings, or knows the feelings. She's able to, emotionally, intelligence wise, able to feel these things. It's a really complicated issue. I'm not a pro. So please don't judge me on some of these comments. I'm just sharing something like with me, that it was very hard to do that, and it's still hard. And I think as a parent, every day your child grows, and you find yourself struggling to bond some days as well still. Or in other days, you're just like, I can't let you go. I just want to squeeze you and let you go, which is what you're saying. It's like, she just does not want to let go of this hope that she had. Like, it's more of a hope thing, of a dream. Like, is she in that dream state where this is how it should be? This is what could have been, stuck on her, what she wants it to be versus the reality. Is she living in her Barbie doll dream house, playing with her toys?
Mhm.
or is she allowing a person to be a person and caring about a person? And I really feel that she is a person. Shauna is a person, that people are not people are objects to her. And that is my firm foundation on that. And that is what she shows. And that's true, like psychopath, dark triad, narcissistic trait.
Mhm.
Um, and it, you know, not all the time. You see her have her moments of glimpse of human nature. But again, even like she didn't think of Hannah once or twice until she brought it back again round to herself, where she's like, oh, well, I lost a baby, and she's listening to the tape. Now all of a
Mhm.
sudden she does that. And then quickly it turned into like, wait, she's taking that from me too. I'm gonna go kill her daughter. Like
Yeah, that was yeah. Well,
it's
we'll get into that in the adult, but yeah,
it's a
what like
psychoanalyst thing. I'm not a doctor, but I do, want to say thank you. We were able to bond once everybody gave us a moment to bond. Like I had some traumatic experiences with some narcissistic family members of mine who were making my baby about them, not about me and child. So I mean that was a thing, but that's over. I've forgiven them, and now we're all bonding together as a family, which that's what Yellowjackets needs to do, is they need to all bond together as a team. Let's bring it back. I just did want to
yeah.
share, this is and it's a normal thing in postpartum depression. And I think Melissa is a way for her to distract herself,
Mhm.
not something really she cared. Oh, you
Mhm.
have a personality?
Yeah. Nothing, I mean, just nothing's factoring to Sean. I truly believe that since she lost the baby, it was just I mean, all sort of
Mm-hmm.
like humanity, all sort of human
Mm-hmm.
connection, or even just the general like care. Like she just doesn't care. She's like, "Oh, okay." Like, and you know what? I've been there. Like I've been traumatized to that point where you're like, I don't care. Like I'll put on a nice smile and pretend, but like I don't care. I don't care what's going on with you. I don't care because it doesn't relate to what's going on with me. And so I
Well,
can't like, bring myself
it
out of my own bullshit enough to like see, or care about what you're going, what's going on with you. Sorry, sometimes it happens.
it's
Like sometimes you
it's
have to be so
stonewalling.
involved in your own shit that you can't allow like other people's just aren't you don't have space for other people's. You don't have the capacity. And I feel like that's the point Shauna's
Yeah.
at. And I don't expect her to heal in any regard while she's out there in the wilderness. Like I just don't
Yeah.
expect that from her. I expect the worst from her.
She
And
well,
she's
she
not
blames
like
shifts. She blames shifts. She stonewalls. She never even looks at what she does. She's quickly,
yeah,
when she is like, "Hey, Shauna, did you do this? Tell me." Then she's blame shifts it to whatever someone else does. I don't. They truly psychopathic and narcissistic people cannot look inside themselves. And there's like the old Greek stuff, like when all is stripped away, all you're left with all these riches and gold and things, and all things around you, all you're left is with your true self identity. And she never knew it. She was never given it. Her identity was what Jackie told her to be, or whatever, and she never
yeah.
could get it. And I mean, it's she's such a sad, tragic character. But I also like, I it's hard to feel sympathy for her at a lot of times. I felt sympathy obviously for the baby and things like that, but there are in the nowadays Shauna, she is, every reaction has a reaction, and you're making these decisions, not trying. And it is I don't think she has the capability to care. I don't think, because there's a certain the Abdullah Enigma, or am I saying it right, where it shuts off, and that's part of what it is. You cannot process the same way
Mhm.
of yourself. Like it's it's a tragic wound. It's a tragic trauma wound.
Yeah. All right,
Mm.
so moving on. So we have this scene. So everybody's gone on the run. Kodiak's like, look, I don't, if you want to survive, now you have to rely on instinct. And if you want to survive, then you better follow me, kind of thing. And she immediately takes off running the opposite direction, which I was like, really? That was very dumb. But so she runs off, Hannah runs off she runs across a field to a grove of trees. She hides out there. Kodiak's off running the other direction. He actually and so the group starts following him. Nat uses her sort of huntress skills. She splits the group up. She tells Travis and Akila to follow Kodiak and Misty. And then the rest of them are following Hannah. And Nat and Shauna put their torches out. So basically, they're using Ty and Van to sort of flush out anyone, and then they'll follow, come up in the flank, and they're, in the darkness. And I love this moment of them like putting their torches out, because Shauna has the most despicable look on her face that I've ever seen. Like, she just looks so and we've talked about this 100 times with the Oresteia and with the Eumenides, the Greek goddesses of justice from the underworld. And that was the face. That was the face that Shauna had when she just had that the grimace on her face when she's putting out the torch. And I just thought it was so magical. But anyhow, so they follow them to the grove, and Hannah hides in this log. And I love this whole scene because this is very Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Now, if you guys, I assume you've all seen Fellowship of the Ring. If you haven't seen Fellowship of the Ring, I don't know what we're doing here, because that's like that's my bread and butter. That's my manna from heaven. So, so in Fellowship of the Rings, the hobbits are being followed by the Nazgul. They hide under this log, and like the Nazgul's foot is like right there. And it's just this entire scene, basically playing out here that we see with Hannah. So Hannah's hiding behind the log. Ty and Van come up. They're looking for her. They don't see her, so they take off running. Hannah pulls out the recorder. She's still got the recorder on, and she had pressed play. Now, we talked about this last week. The recording that's on the tape that the older women are listening to is the tape that Hannah is recording here, obviously. So she starts to record a message for her child. So she has a child at home. And in this recording, she doesn't say son or daughter or my baby girl, my baby boy, nothing like that. She actually just says for her baby, her sweet baby Alex. And she just records, I love you so much. And if you ever get this, I just want you to know that I love you, and that I wanted to be more than a teen mom kind of thing. And so she records this, and then she hides it in the log, and she kind of buries it with some rocks. And then we hear the gunshot go off, and that is Akila and Travis, who are also trying to flush out Kodiak in their own, little method that they have going on. And so, of course, Hannah is like, oh my gosh. So she lays right back down and hides. And then Nat and Shauna come through the darkness and come up to where she's at, and they're looking around. And as they're approaching, as Hannah had been running in, her hair got caught on a branch and it ripped out like a hank of her hair. There's a germ shout out for you guys, hank of hair. And so Melisandre for you. So she leaves a sample behind on this branch. And as Shauna and Nat are coming into the grove, Shauna sees the hair hanging on the branch. And I think this is really significant for many reasons, but let's finish this up and tie it all together. So they have this sort of Lord of the Rings scene. She's looking through this little hole in the log. Finally, Hannah decides, I'm just going to surrender. Like, maybe I'll have better luck if I surrender. So she stands up, she surrenders, and Nat is immediately like, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And but Shauna comes up behind her and like holds the knife to her back, and she's like, you shot an arrow through one of our friends, kind of thing. And again, this is going back, like, do I really think she's actually caring that much about Melissa, or is it just that she has an excuse to hold a knife to somebody's back? I kind of think it's the latter when it comes to Shauna. But now, one interesting thing also, when Shauna saw the hair, she puts it in her pocket. And so this is, number one, reminiscent of the scene with Jackie and the earlobe, which she sticks in her ear for later use. So, we're obviously going to come up with something where this hair is going to come into use for a significant reason later on. But also, it ties into what's happening in the adult timeline as far as the DNA sample goes, because as we saw, Walter had taken the hair out of Shauna's hat and was using it for the mutually assured destruction between the two of them, which Shauna did not agree to. So he just went ahead and, took it anyways. And
Can
so,
I
go
just
ahead.
say, I just want to share an experience again. Don't ever volunteer any hair samples, period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know.
That's all I need to say. But just trust me when I tell you, do not share your hair sample. That stuff stays there way longer than what they tell you.
Yeah. When you're doing lines of brain blood, it can really show up in your system sometimes.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I cannot like let that comment. I don't know what you're talking about.
But
Let's just say like the gas or psychopomps or conduit things to the spirit realm. Let's refer to it like that.
Yes. But so for the, this kind of ties into the adult timeline with Walter and with Shauna, and then it will play into like what's happening in the adult timeline, because Walter calls Misty and he says, "Oh, the DNA sample matches Shauna," which I mean, the whole thing is so fabricated as far as Walter is concerned. I just don't believe anything that he's coming up with. But if it were true, who shares DNA with Shauna? Her child, Callie. So like it's implicating Callie in the situation. But I just thought it was all, but
oh wait, so can
circle.
we ask?
Hold on, full circle.
Okay.
What this all comes together as, because we have this Lord of the Rings scene, this hair situation that's involved, Walter taking Shauna's hair sample, a younger version of Shauna. What all these things are like really painting a picture here that's really pointing at Callie, because and also involving
Bingo.
Walter in some way, shape, or form, because why include this very Lord of the Rings scene? And if we know anything about Elijah Wood, he played Frodo Baggins in Lord of the Rings. There was somebody in here, Bilbong Baggins, your nephew, Frodo.
Bilbong Baggins, don't give your hair sample.
Exactly. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, so this is either like, and maybe it's a red herring. Maybe it was a red herring because, a lot of us have suspected Walter to somehow be connected to these hikers or these frog scientists. Like maybe I think people were originally suspecting he might be the child of them, but I think it would possibly be more likely that he would be like a sibling to one of them. Like maybe he's Edwin's brother. Now we know Walter had a brother and he wrote the anus book or what have you, but maybe he had more than one brother. And so, or no, wait, that was Adam's brother that wrote the anus book. We don't know if Walter has any siblings, right?
Yeah.
I think we were kind of assuming maybe Walter and Adam might have been brothers, but anyways,
I love you said red herring though.
I don't think we know of him having any siblings, but I think it's the potential. Maybe he could be Edwin's sibling, or something. But like something is connecting him to this situation. Like
I love you said
this is an interweaving of things happening here. Walter, Shauna, younger version of Shauna, Hannah, this log, this Lord of the Rings scene. Like it's all sort of like what are we weaving here?
I love this is it right here. That's the answer. I love it.
I don't know. I mean, are we going to have another wilderness? Is Walter the wilderness baby?
The love child?
That would actually be really funny.
I like that. Frogs and creations, curls. So I love that you said, red herring, and now that we're talking about hair. And I have noticed Shauna's hair is more red this season in team version Shauna. Okay. Very more red. And I don't know. I had to point that out. And we're talking all this rogue stuff here. And her red chakras and all of the redness and the color symbolism there.
Well, I have a thought. I have a kind of a little theory about that.
Do tell.
We have the Arthurian overtones going on with a lot of green man symbolism, but also with, I talked about this when Melissa gives Shauna the scabbard for her knife, and how that's a very Excalibur coded, right? So like the scabbard is where the power lies. It's not necessarily in the weapon, in the sword Excalibur, or in Shauna's knife, for example. It's in the scabbard, and that offers like protection, and also like super strength and super speed and that kind of thing. And so when Morgan Le Fay comes and she takes she comes after Arthur's been injured, she steals the scabbard. She doesn't steal the sword. So anyhow, Shauna having those Arthurian connections and overtones, but Arthur's wife, Guinevere, we all know Guinevere, is very well known to have red hair in like many versions of the story, but like that's like, kind of her canonical look. So I was kind of thinking like Shauna's red hair, and this is of course me reaching as far as I possibly can, but but
To the spirit realm.
I love this idea. We have Guinevere and we have Daenerys Targaryen lovers.
Listen, for those of you who know, you know.
If you know, you know. Okay, guys. Sorry. We might be a little bit niche. Okay. So Shauna and Nat, they find Hannah and they pull her out, and she kind of basically says, look, I was not responsible for, like, Shauna's really pissed. Oh, you guys shot our friend. And here, let me pull this picture up here. And Nat's like, no, everything's going to be okay. Ty and Van come running back up, which they had found the tent. They found their camp, and they found at the camp, number one, they found the frog in the jar, and thank you, Van. She let it go. They also found the sat phone there, which had been broken when in the tent when Cody and Hannah had been kind of flirtatiously wrestling around. And then, but the phone doesn't work. They don't have, because the antenna is broken. Although it might still potentially work if they got to like a high enough elevation, but that's neither here nor there. But interesting thing about the phone is that it was marked property of KUH, and KUH was marked on the boxes that Coach Ben had found in the pit. And so what KUH stands for, we find this out later when Shauna is looking up Hannah's obituary. She had gone to Keene University. Herpetology is the study of frogs. And so Keene University herpetology is what KUH stands for. So Ty and Van, they're trying to use the phone, and we have this like heart-wrenching moment of Van being like, I'm going to call my mom. And we all know Van's mom is not the most reliable of people, but thankfully the call didn't go through anyways. But good God, imagine if it had. But
But like,
and we see from Van, like Van wants to go home. She's like,
that was
we're
beautiful.
going to go home. Like, she's so excited that these people have come along. She wants to go home. She's ready, and that's, in the grand scheme of things, knowing how things play out for Van is actually even more heart-wrenching, that she thinks like she's going to go home and things are going to be fine, and her and Ty are going to still be a couple, and they're going to live their lives together, and they're going to go to New York City and have pretzels and horse-drawn carriage rides and all this kind of stuff. And we know that that's not how things work out for Van, which is even more heartbreaking.
I love this because it was sad, and just the fact that she does want to call her mom. I mean, I don't know. That's how mine and my mom's relationship was, and it was just like, wow. And I felt that, and not just feeling it. Like, she realizes at that point, like, all of these things, we have already made them, we've done them. We don't need things, and in the future, she. And then now isolates herself because I think due to this trauma, because she really needed and understood at that point that the things were the things, we need people, we need interaction, and this whole concept of personal interaction, connections, and then she's not connected. She's not connected to Thaisa. She's not connected. And then we get that phone call, the random phone call where she's connected randomly to the spirit realm. She just wants that true connection. And it's bigger than that to me when I saw that. Like, it was more, even if it was her mom, the person who's hurt her and traumatized her, it just, the connection alone, you know, as a team, as people, and with everyone going rogue and not connected as a team. I think this was that van moment, that vanguard where we find that purpose. The same when she talks to Travis, we give her a purpose and she gives us part of a story here with that particular, you know, dialogue. And I just felt that deeper dialogue that was like about human connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Van is such a, a wild card. She's the Jack, she's the Jack card. And so that's always fitting her personality. You really just don't know what you're going to get from her. And so I think I was surprised at how much she was like, I want to go home. Like, we're going home. She was so excited. And that was like where her motivation immediately went versus, the group mentality. It seems like they all really snapped, or not all of them, but a lot of them really snapped out of it the second that they saw those people. They were like, oh my God, this dream, this story, as they refer to it, and that's what episode 9 is called, is how the story ends. This is the story that they're in, and that's how a lot of them are viewing it, at least the more rational people who are involved. But anyhow, so all right. So, and then with Kodiak and with Aquila and Travis, they run for Shit Cliff. Let me see if I have a picture here. But they make a run for it, and Misty comes up and she's basically like, oh, I think she says she saw him, whatever. Anyways, basically Travis sends Misty off to like go flank him or whatever. And what's so amazing about this scene, and I thought was like so interesting, is right when Misty's running up to Travis and Aquila, there's a bunch of birds flying overhead. And I don't know if they're bats or if they're owls or like what the heck those birds were. I think they were owls, but I don't know. But or they might, they might have been bats, because what's interesting is going back to Doom Coming, and they also use the Doom Coming soundtrack at certain moments during this. I want to say even between Misty, like on the Misty and Travis and Aquila side of things. But anyways, they back in Doom Coming, there was, when Misty drank all the berry wine, she had all this like wine running down her face and like staining her face, and she looked like a vampire in a sense. And then she was like stalking Ben and Nat as they were like, off kind of doing their own thing. And so this scene of Misty here really felt reminiscent of that, where she's running and she's like cawing and she's like running in the darkness or whatever. And then she's supposed to be hunting down Kodiak, which is like, Misty is just she's a tiny little girl with glasses. It's like if someone said to me, go hunt down Kodiak, I'd be like, no, I don't think I'm the person for that job. So it was just kind of an interesting moment. But yeah, so Misty, she's chasing him down, and let me find,
So bats are also like a symbolism of like the demons, or like the veil of the spirit world. But the word croaking, remember when I go back to that definition, it means like crowing. So I thought they were the Pale of Crows again, which we have the crows away. And then also the crow, the word croaking is hand in one's dinner pail, which is like you're handing the bucket of shit, the shit bucket, or go bung. I mean, dung, bung. What is bung? Is bung dung? Wait, let's Google. Anyway,
this is my face all the time, by the way. Anytime I'm trying to do something without my glasses on, that is my face.
This is, yeah, the perfect meme. This is like, what, Christian? I know you're listening. What?
But yeah, so as she's chasing up on him, like he shoots an arrow at her, and the arrow goes, sticking in a tree, but she like jumps out of the way. She knows, danger. She senses danger, and and her glasses go flying off, which let me just tell you from personal experience, like that is just one of the worst things in the world, to have your glasses go flying off of your face. One time I was driving across the 520 bridge in Seattle, and it was like 5 p.m. and it was raining outside, and I accidentally knocked my glasses off of my face. I don't even know what I did, but I accidentally knocked them off onto the floor on the passenger side. 520 bridge goes across a lake, guys. It was storming outside. I had to make it across the bridge, 5 o'clock traffic in Seattle, to pull off at the freaking exit where Bill Gates lives. So I'm like, oh, okay, let me just pull off in the most, cop-laden area of the Pacific Northwest and try and find my glasses. It's a terrible situation.
You needed to coach Ben there as a bridge. So speaking of misty glasses, let's just misty out together.
We're in the zone. So anyway, Misty trying to find her glasses, freaking out. Now Kodiak goes running up and nearly runs off the cliff. Akilah and Travis are like kind of hiding behind a tree, waiting for him to come, which is like, I don't know if they chose this place strategically because it was close to the cliff. Maybe they're like, well, let's not let him run off the cliff. I don't know. It's just kind of a funny moment. But they're like, watch out, there's a cliff. And he still manages to nearly fall off the cliff. So he's hanging there. And I think this moment is really significant because this cliff has so much meaning behind it. Now, this is Shit Cliff, where they go and they dump the poop bucket, but also that's where Crystal fell off the cliff and they never found her body. But also it's the cliff that Akilah saw in her dream, where she sees Coach Ben as the bridge and she sees him stretched across this chasm, and on the other side is civilization. And so that was what her vision was. So there's something about the cliff that is really symbolically important. And I think that Kodiak knew that because, and again, going back to him potentially being like an entity of the wilderness or something of that nature, like he knew this importance of this cliff. And when he went to fall, like Travis goes up and he's pointing the gun, but he's also kind of extending the gun for him to grab on it and pull him up. But Kodiak says, save your bullet in this moment. So like he doesn't want to die by bullet. He would prefer to die by falling off of a cliff. And that's so really interesting because there's something important about the cliff, I think, like, because Crystal's body was never found and we don't know what happened to her. And so,
or is it that he's already dead and that he says, you can't kill me?
Yes, exactly.
Save your bullet. Not gonna kill me.
Here, I'm gonna let you talk for a minute, Mandy, because
he also lets you like. Well, okay. Where do you want me to go?
You got it.
All right, save your bullet. Give me back my bullets. So I'm just gonna go into the chat because, yep, so hot. I mean, he really was like next level with this stuff. I also feel like, let's go back to this. I don't know if I get in that. No, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go back to this. Okay. So let's see. I feel like he was going to make a calculated fall. That's a good, interesting question. I don't know if that would have. I mean, that sounds like a badass thing that Kodiak would do. And yeah, I'm sure he does know something about that area. We've talked about it earlier. I'm not sure if you were here before, Natasha. Let's see. I was so assumed Javi nibbled on Crystal. That I don't really think that, but that's kind of. Wait, I mean, are you meaning like in a mating way? I personally don't think Crystal's real. I do not think she's real. I think that she is an illusion of Misty came up with as her best friend because she had no friends and she has to have an imaginary best friend. And that was like the part of her that needed to come out. Oh, this is interesting about the parent child ratio.
Interesting.
I actually think, okay, so I think I think Lottie sacrificed herself to give Callie the power of the wilderness. That is my theory, and I'm saying it
Yeah.
here. I don't think, and I think that she brought it to her house. That's why Lottie paid off the money, because she knew that she was selfish prophet. So she was giving back the money she owed to people, and she wanted to be a real prophet. And she went for redemption and sacrificing herself for Callie. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that was it Callie who had the van that day? Maybe fell out of Callie's purse with her phone into her mom's purse. I don't know. We can see. But
Edna made this comment, there were bones in the cave, after they found Javi, but those weren't crystals. They were we did
oh,
a deep dive on them during season 2. They were too small. They were just like little birds or rats or rodents or what have you.
mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I just think there's something really important about the cliff. I think that there's something significant.
Yeah.
There's some sort of, and and this all kind of ties into the idea of like the descent, the descent into the underworld, the descent into the cave, that falling symbolism or imagery that we have associated with a lot of these characters at in their moments of death. And I talked about this. I made a video a couple weeks ago about, it's called The Descent, and it's about Coach Ben and Mari and their time in the cave and like what that symbolically represents. So definitely check that out. But I
Yeah.
think that the cliff, I talk about the cliff in there as well. And that kind of playing into that idea of the falling imagery. There's something to
Well,
that. And whether that's like literally falling or just like death in its, in a sense.
there
And even
is
like
that like death
go ahead.
death reaper cage, like I don't know if you Creed fan 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking, and where they take you to a mountain high top,
Mhm.
where you can jump, or you can jump, go on, move on. And there's
Yep.
also the cliff in Marvel with Thanos and all of that. um and you see what red what's her name, Red Widow, or Red Scarlett Johansson's character, where
Okay.
they always have to like somebody tell me that, but they're at the cliff and they're having to choose to get one of their stones, right? And one of
Okay.
them has to die. One of them has to die to get the power. A Black Widow, thank you.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of also other cliff symbology and a
Well,
lot of like mythology and death realms,
yeah.
and lots. So there's way, way, way more to it for sure.
And part of the Eleusinian mysteries is that part of the mysteries, which is the descent, the search, and the ascent. And so
Yes.
for me, like that fits into a lot of like what the symbol actually is. The symbol, being a triangle, having the sun above and the hook below, the hook being like underworld imagery. And then you have the dividing line, which is relevant to like Neoplatonism, basically like Platonic philosophy, because Plato's um The Republic by Plato talks a lot about this. It has the allegory of the cave, it has the allegory of the, what is it, the sun or the something like that, and then the allegory of the dividing line. And I really think that a lot of that fits into the design of the symbol, amongst like other things. I think that the symbol is like a multi faceted kind of thing. Like it has a lot
What
going on. It means multiple different things. So
what was I can't why can I not think? I'm having a terrible job with names today. Maybe too much coffee. But the show we covered where he pushes her off the cliff when he's teaching her to be a come on.
which one? Which show?
The show we covered with the little pebble, and where they're
Oh,
he pushes her off
Britannia.
the
Britannia.
Britannia.
And
Uh
he does. He pushes her off a cliff. And you know what? I was thinking, I even have it in our notes, Mandy. I don't know if you saw this. I put, who would probably really like Lottie a lot is Varen the Druid.
Baron, sometimes you do.
Varen would love Lottie. I don't know if you got anyone in the chat. Did you watch Britannia? Mandy and I covered it like some years back. I don't know if I still have our live streams up on my channel, but like that's a great show. And there's so much. It's about druids. It's about ancient Rome, or about ancient Britain and then like the Romans showing up and sort of that the effect on the Britons because of that. And
I'm
this,
not even sure that
I think
that
it's
is even
Boudica.
us anymore. I don't think that that's even us anymore. When I look back at some of our old streams from many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A long time
and
ago.
Sean Sheen is one of the main characters in that one too. If you all watch Wheel of Time, which I've been like super binging on and loving, and anyway, but yeah, the cliff is a big thing about magical
Yeah, that's a
powers.
good
Are you
point. I
willing
didn't
to?
even think of that.
All right,
That's
and then
great.
also in the beginning, actually in the Bible and stuff, are you willing to take a leap of faith?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's also that, like where you just jump, and in the beginning of the world, they jumped the leap of faith, and then 1,000 stars were put into the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So
I
yeah,
love
so
you
there's so much.
guys.
Yep, exactly. Boudica. Yeah, that's what I think Britannia is about. Is like the kind of like childhood story of Boudica, and I think
I
that's even still relevant, even with the way that it ended, even though it shouldn't have ended the way
that
it
it
ended, though.
shouldn't have ended. That was like
And
a
so,
it.
you know what? If
And
they,
the cannibalism of the cannibalism, and then they eat his own son, and like they're eating people all the time. Like that was, you want
yes,
to talk about
yeah.
cannibalism? That one. Whew.
That was not so good though. You know what? That cannibalism scene was not as well done as anything in Yellowjackets. That was like I think
Well,
a lot of people were super turned off
naturally,
by that in the just the way that it just
naturally.
didn't work. It just did not work. But anyway,
It's supposed to turn you off, but
yeah.
naturally, of course, it's not Yellowjackets, of
Yeah,
course.
I guess Yellowjackets is the only one out there that's making us sympathize for the okay, anyways, all right. So I think we've pretty much covered everything in the teen timeline, everything that's going on. And so we will move on to the adult timeline. Yes, good question. Are we going to see Callie in a $1,600 red dress? Very good point. Well, you might see that if she wins hashtag it chooses.
We did see her. Let's start with Kelly. We did see her though in Heliotrope much of this episode, and she also was going rogue. And I know how to Google, doesn't Shauna? Well, guess what? So does her daughter. Look at these traits that we're taught as children. But anyway, she does come up to her dad, and I love that scene. And she does wear a lot of heliotrope and things that are very similar and similar of Lottie. And she's wearing her hair like Lottie. She is very embodiment of Lottie Jackie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, she's she hears her mother being really secretive. She knows what that ultimately leads to. So, like, I think she's just feeling really betrayed by her own mom for not telling her this, but also like upending her life. Like, that's one of the things we see with Jeff and Callie at the beginning of this episode is like, Jeff is pissed. He's like, I'm stuck here in this poorly furnished shit box while you're out running around doing whatever the hell you want to do. And I love that moment for so many reasons. Number one, because I am a stay-at-home mom, Mandy, I'm sure you can relate. Like, that's like definitely, we've all had that argument. Every stay-at-home mom has had that argument with her husband or
Jeff
partner or whatever. I'm
was
stuck here in this
MVP.
poorly furnished shit box while you're out running around doing whatever you want to do. So, but
Jeff was MVP of this episode for me for standing up against himself, being honest, saying, Shauna, how many times you can be honest with me? We can do this. She still lies. I hope that that Callie wears this red dress when she's killing Shauna personally. But I mean, I don't know if I can say that again. But anyway, this is a show. This is a TV show. But that's my prediction theory. But, or when she's being queened, or when the rest of the everything comes out. But with Jeff and his skin irritation, okay, so this is what really gets me, because this is also a symbol of, and what happens to a lot of people who go through extreme trauma or narcissistic long-term abuse. They start to develop skin problems like psoriasis or other problems with their health that are kind of like unexplainable, or they can't really figure it out, or it doesn't go because you're so stressed and you're like your body reacts to this trauma. And it's just like there's also a roguette, like since we're talking all those rogue today, the roguette cells responsible for carrying oxygen to the tissues, which we see with Van after the gas, she starts blowing up and stuff. And we'll talk about that in a second. But like Jeff, though, the scratches, bed bugs, some kind of rash, like honestly, I'm gonna tell you, I experienced this after my abuse. And I'm going freaking out and feeling these things. It just feels like something is not right. All the gaslighting, all of this stuff, all the things around you, like you have to really focus otherwise on anything or all these other distractions because you don't trust someone is constantly running around near you. You give them time and time again to trust you, to tell you the truth. They don't do it, and then you're sitting there like a frog sitting in a jar. Okay, you become a ghost, a doormat, just become a doormat husband or a doormat wife. And I mean, there's so much to it, but it's like a parallel, and it's prolonged exposure to struggles between the lies and deceit. And when you trust someone, especially where you have your cell connection, you actually have DNA connections. You want to talk about DNA when you actually are with some person, and then the spiritual ties and connections when you're with some person, just when you have intercourse or any kind of sexual relations, there's a spiritual tie and bond. There's also DNA bonds for 6 months or more. Period. Even if you use a condom or not, you kiss somebody, whatever, you are sharing molecules. Okay. So, and we have all this stress and stuff that Shauna's going through. She's going paranoid and crazy. Jeff is experiencing the same thing. Jeff is literally like still feeling what she feels too. And we do this unity connection. We do this. There are direct connections between the trauma and your body. And I'm going to share a video. There's this guy named Danish who I watch and I love. And he talks a lot about his experience through narcissistic stories and sharing his recovery. And he is an abuse recovery specialist, and he has his YouTube channel. So I'm just going to share that with you guys, and y'all can look into it more. But there are things, exactly what Jeff is experiencing is exactly what this is. And that's what I guess. And I love that he
has a soul.
That furniture has a soul. Okay. I feel I love you, Jeff. Jeff is the husband. You know, it's so funny. Season 1, we were like, he's a dumb, like he's not the good husband. But like right now, Jeff like is a ride or die. Like I will marry Jeff in a heartbeat. Like where are you at,
love
Jeff?
That like moment between him and Shauna where she's trying to like manipulate him, and he's like, "No, don't be ridiculous. You're the love of my life." Like he's, he no matter what, he's ride or die for Shauna. He knows that she's an insane person, and he accepts her for it. But, like, I do think that there's, at this point, like she's starting to push it because the way she's speaking to him, number one, she's like, mind your own fucking business, basically to him and to Callie. But then also, she's just dismissive, and she's going, and it's very like Thaisa energy. Yeah. Like she's just going to go do what she's going to do. And he's not used to that. But the biggest thing is that I think he points out, he's like, Callie is missing more school, and I have a job. I own a business. So like, whatever kind of shit Shauna's into, like, their lives still have to function. Somebody's got to make money so they can go stay at the Jolly Hitcher or what have you. Like the whole thing is just kind of out of control. And I think Shauna is acting really entitled because she's stepped into like her queenly demeanor. And my biggest question is, does Shauna have a VPN? Because like she really searches a lot of incriminating stuff on her phone and on her laptop, and I'm like,
no, she wants to be caught. She just leaves it open, like she leaves it where Jeff can see it, and Jeff read it all, and he's still there, and he's like, I know secrets. He is your love language, Shauna. Like, I mean, how like, but like, here's the point: is this is where it's called meshing. And when we talked about previously, like jerseys, you're going to wear the mesh. You know, on a team, when you play against each other, when you scrimmage, they're scrimmaging, and he's meshing, and they're meshing intertangled. And right now, he's locked as a goalkeeper, and literally Shauna's taking the goalkeeper out on a journey. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, this is very bad, because this is the beginning of Jeff's abuse really, really coming out, because he is giving her so many chances, and she just continues to lie. Like, yeah, as many times someone said, like, Shauna lies to Jeff at least 10 times. Well, he gives her at least 10 chances, or he tries and he does all this stuff, and everything he does, she belittles him. Oh, well, what? We're going to go churn butter or strawberry jam or whatever, belittles him or stonewalls him or lies or doesn't care or sabotages like his his agreements. And this is exactly what they do. This is what narcissists do, psychopaths do, because nothing is more important than what she wants. Not even her family, protecting her family. She thinks she's doing it. No, she's protecting her secrets, because the real Ashana, the real identity, is starting to show. And she's trying to justify it to everyone who's seeing it. Misty, her daughter, Jeff, everyone is seeing the real Shauna and calling her out. And right now she's trying to, even if she has to kill somebody to do it, she's going to try to hide her real identity, because that's what they do. It's a false mask. It's masking, and it is what it is. It's filtering at its finest. Here, I'm going to share this Danish thing though, but you guys should check them out anyway. I'm not going to go off on narcissists. This is obviously triggering me, y'all. So
Shauna goes out and she basically said, and Callie has been listening through the doorway and all of this, and she's immediately searching up things. They're both searching for things because Shauna had listened to the recording in the bathroom and she's gaining more information. So she learned that this is kind of a weird time sequence, but she listened to the tape in the bathroom. She hears this comment about how she had another child, and then that Hannah had a child. She has this little argument with Jeff, and then she leaves, and then she goes down the elevator, and Ty, Van, and Misty are standing there waiting for her, ready to say, what the heck is going on. And, just so we're clear, like, apparently Shauna must have done all of her citizen detective work in the elevator, because, like, when they get in the van, she's like, oh, well, I've already figured out X, Y, and Z. I know where she had, gave birth at, what hospital she gave birth at, and what the child's name is, and what her forwarding address is, and all this kind of, like, it's like, I don't know if I trust Shauna's citizen detective work without Misty's, like, oversight, right? You know what I'm saying? And so,
sheriff work.
Yeah, exactly.
The sheriff in town.
It's citizen detective, idiot. But so she so she's got it figured out. So Hannah had a daughter. Apparently this is a daughter. So of course, she gets a hold of her, like, this is the thing. I'm like, really? You were able to get a hold of her, like, private medical records? Okay, interesting. But in, like, the snap of a finger, okay, so you didn't have to jump through any hoops or send in any paperwork requesting this, or wait for them to send it to you. No, you were just able to make a phone call and find this stuff out. Okay, I don't believe it. But so they all get into the car together, and Misty
well, what if Shauna's red herring?
Well, and they don't trust Shauna to handle it without going rogue, as they say. She's just, she's been known to do some crazy stuff, and, and not really have a good answer for it. Same with Thaisa. And so, so they are like, look, we're coming with you. So they load up in the van, they stop by the gas station, which, interesting. I think it should be pointed out that, Thaisa initially was going to pay, but her cards are maxed out. So that's interesting. And we're going to get into the Ty and Van stuff, but
yeah, let's congratulate Jen Hack on becoming a new YouTube member really quick.
Thank you,
Jen.
Welcome to the Faye fam. Welcome to channel memberships. You should hopefully have access to exclusive emojis now. So definitely check in your emoji section. You might need to refresh it or something, but thank you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for supporting the channel. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So back to Shauna's rogue van.
I have gained a few channel members in the last couple weeks. So thank you. If you guys are watching, welcome. And thank you for supporting the channel. And if anyone else, channel memberships is like $2.99 a month. I also have a Patreon if you want to join Patreon and help support the channel over there. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. You're awesome. So, it's not showing up. Oh, maybe I just don't see them over here.
It's not working.
Can you see? Are you on YouTube right now? Are they showing up?
Yeah, let me look. Have to go down to the bottom.
I can't see them over
here. Oh, yes.
Yay!
They're showing up on YouTube. Okay, cool. Not on our side, but yes, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jen. Okay. So
wait. Shauna's van, though, it's rogue red. The pump is rogue red. She's pumping her own gas. They're making her pump her own gas because you're gaslighting red hair.
Mm.
She's red herring. She's the citizen detective red herring because she's watching it
Yeah.
for herself. How
Well,
about
that's
that?
kind of what I think, like, at the end of all things, like, I don't even think that Shauna is, like, like, I actually think she's being led on a like, someone is luring her. She is not hunting, she's being hunted. And I think that
Well,
Alex, this whole Alex situation, I don't think Alex has any freaking idea about anything that's going on. I think that she's completely being used, and someone else had found the tape, whoever I'm now this is we're kind of jumping ahead, but I think that like whoever Hillary Swank's character is, whether it's Melissa or whether it's someone else, that's like who is hunting Shauna, but she has
okay.
this information and she knew like Shauna is so crazy that this is all it's going to take to lure her in, just like make the information super easy to track down, and then she's going to come. I mean, it's so easy.
The
And so,
hunted,
and
the
and
hunter
not to
became the
mention
hunted.
Virginia is for lovers. Okay, so like, why go to Virginia? You know. And so there's a lot to it, but I think like Shauna thinks that she has it all figured out, and she doesn't have anything figured out, which is very typical of Shauna.
You
So
you go to you go to Virginia to get rich, Mom. Okay, but no, the hunter becomes the hunted. But at the same time, that's how paranoid she is. That's how much she hunts. That what she's doing is she's projecting what she does. She's
yeah,
literally like saying, and now that like it's back on her, she deserves it.
absolutely. I mean, she's no freaking saint. And, so we have this like scene with Misty, and Misty's like, first of all, we talked about kind of the DNA stuff with Walter. So she gets a call from Walter, and Walter's like, the DNA matches from Lottie, under Lottie's fingernails to Shauna. And so they're sitting there in the van and they're all like texting each other, which is super funny, a hilarious scene. But also Ty at the same time is like, well, you just said I was the killer 2 hours ago, and that didn't make any sense. So like, what the heck are you talking about? But like she says she's got the DNA matching evidence. Again, going back, like Shauna is not the only person who has her DNA. Callie does. And so I think that, I think Misty's jumping the gun. She thinks she's got this all figured out, but there's more to it. And that's kind of what's going on with both of them. And I love this like contention that's going on between Misty and Shauna. We talked about this before. Like before the season started, I brought up this idea that, and maybe it's a wilderness kind of a struggle overtone, but basically Shauna believes that she's like the queen. All right. They're not talking about it, but when Nat died, they did the card draw, they did the hunt, and Shauna drew the queen card. So effectively, she's now the queen, right? The queen of hearts, or that's what we're presuming. And that's what she is presuming. Okay. But when, like, we also need to consider that Misty is the one who killed Nat. Like, she's the one that actually injected her with the thing. And so there's this idea of like, who is actually the queen? Is it someone who draws the card and that's how this is determined? Or is it who is the strongest? Because we talked about that with Shauna. And in the younger timeline, Shauna kind of believes that she is, because she is the most willing to be violent, to act out, to lash out and do whatever. She's willing to go the distance physically to make sure the job is done. And so when it comes to this dynamic between them, like Misty is actually the one who took out the former queen, right? Versus Shauna, who believes she's queen because she drew a card. So there is a little bit of like, who is actually the queen? Who's actually the leader in this
Okay.
situation? Because it just
Chat.
kind of depends on like how, like, what's the wilderness justice system, and that's like been the whole kind of big question for season 3, wilderness justice. And so like that judicial system kind of feeds into like who's actually their leader. And so there's something to that, and I think that that's part of their like contention between these two this season.
Chat, who do you think is the queen? Misty or Shauna at this point?
Yeah.
Possibly could be Callie, but I don't think I think Callie is more of like the oracle passed on.
Yes.
But
But what's
come on.
like Lisa, and then Lisa kind of is like striking me because she's got all this like anger sort of built up. And so part of me is like, is she kind of like Shauna
Natty,
in
she's
a sense, rather than Lottie. Well, like Callie's more like Lottie, but what if Lisa's more like Shauna? You know?
I
Because
think
I don't think we're
Missy
done with Lisa. Like, I just don't. I mean, maybe like
no.
if we don't get a fourth season, but I feel like Lisa has so much potential as a character, and the fact that like
Mhm.
Lottie gave her that money back, like she's just
Yeah.
in the situation whether she likes it or not, you
It
know?
could it could be that, like, Lottie or is pay like, Lottie's paying or paid to do this to Shauna to, like, get it back because, like, I don't know, I wouldn't put it past that Lisa
That's an
is
interesting
the
idea.
one doing these things to get her to go crazy because she's mad about Shauna and knows what kind of person Shauna is after being at the wellness center together. And also beyond that, she's like, just some of the things Lisa said in the episode just were very, like, to the point. And I think that is the same with Misty too. And this is why I have, like, Misty as a queen, because she really is, like, just stepping up to the plate for herself, for this. I mean, she sacrifices her own house. She leaves her house down south, but she still comes and brings everyone together, is making all of the initiative. Um, they were the last to be told, but we see Nat as the queen was last to be told several things. Jackie was last to be told several things too, and she was like the queen bee.
Yeah.
So, because they want to overthrow the queen, and the queen and the kings are usually like, you're supposed to go tell them, but there's just a lot of things underlying that I think Misty is taking Nat's. Well, obviously she took Nat's mantle, right?
Mhm.
And we're seeing that Callie taking Lottie's mantle. But Shauna's is just, like, still the same. Like, she hasn't changed. She doesn't want to take on new one stuff. She's covering everything. So
Yeah.
she's looking for the scapegoats, and that's why this one.
Yeah. It's interesting. And so there's yeah, Misty is like they're basically stuck out there in the waiting room together, and Misty's like, "Well, I have DNA evidence connecting you to this." And Shauna's like, "Well, Lottie was staying at my house. Her DNA would be all over me." And she says,
Mhm.
"Well, I don't know about like under her fingernails kind of thing." Um, and um, and then she also
Well,
finds this receipt in Shauna's van, which says that she had gone into the city the day that Lottie had died. And so evidence is pointing to Shauna, and Misty is, not missing out on it. And so,
or
um,
Jeff.
yeah, so they kind Misty just kind of like turns and like, whatever. And Shauna says, I'm going to get a coat, blah, blah, blah. And so she goes and then she just ends up leaving, and she leaves Misty and Ty and Van there at the hospital, and
That
she
was
heads for Virginia.
that was another definition of croak. It was like to cash in one's chips.
Yeah.
So and I think that Misty knew that was happening, and when it happened, instead of chasing it, because that's what Misty would do, she just said, like, whatever. And that's another reason why I think that Misty's more queen, because she stayed with Van. Like, she stayed. Like, she's
Yeah.
like, Shauna's gonna do what she's gonna do. It's kind of reminded me of like Snow White and the Huntress and the Hunter, where they send out the hunter. But yeah, I don't know. Oh,
So,
the
yeah, we
veil.
have this kind of interesting build up to basically okay, so okay, let's go through the Ty and Van scenes really quick. So, to at the beginning of the episode, Misty barges into their hotel room, and Van is like very shocked. And Van's like standing there, she's kind of like contemplating like what the heck is going on with Ty and her like carnivore appetite. And then they had that scene with like the box cutters, and she had the phone call from other Ty, and she's like figuring out that other Ty has taken over. Dark Thaisa has like taken over. She's starting to, and I do want to point out like this is Van's thing. Okay. Like they all have these bad habits or these like sort of um vices that they give into, like with Shauna and Adam, or like with Shauna and like her van where she like went and held the guy up and threatened to skin him and all this kind of stuff. Like, or with Thaisa and Dark Ty, or Lottie and blood sacrifices. This is Van's thing, okay? Van's weird vice is she is very attracted to Dark Thaisa. And there's a dangerous element to it because they had this relationship back in the wilderness when they were young. and they were keeping secrets. It was just their own thing. They had their own thing going on. And even we see this throughout season 3 before they figure out that like Shauna and Melissa kind of have a couple thing going on. Like Ty and Van are like the lesbians in the group, and they like identify as such. And so it's just this funny like dynamic that they have going on. They're a couple, they have this going on, and then as they get older, like they break up and whatever. And so Van has this attraction to Dark Thaisa because that was like her own personal thing where they felt the most alive when they're out in the wilderness. The whole thing with the fire and like her keeping that secret, like, you know, we kind of assume that it was Dark Ty who started the fire, and Van's been keeping that secret for her. And so
they were soul tied, literally tied, like soul tied, and tied like in a rope.
Well, and Van is like that fire symbolism where Dark Ty, like there's something to the darkness. Like I talked about this also in the video, that Ty is really connected to winter and to darkness, but you need to have like a guiding light or what have you. And so there's almost this triple goddess imagery. Like we know that Thaisa is connected to Hecate. Hecate is a triple goddess. She has 3 aspects, and I feel like Van kind of fits into one of those aspects. It's really interesting because she's like the light, the fire, the guiding light. And so they have this connection, and I think that Van is really attracted to Dark Ty, and that's her vice, and that's her like thing, you know? And so we see this moment, like she's getting more and more sick, and she's realizing that Dark Thaisa is kind of the only one who can save her. And so is she willing to feed into that or not? And it seems like up until now, it's not. She doesn't want to live that way. She doesn't want to live if other people have to die in order for her to live. But Dark Ty is not willing to let go of her. And I don't know if maybe Dark Ty's life force or something like that is like connected to Van. Like she can't survive without Van. And there's a lot of connections to like Jennifer's body going on with the box cutters and just their dynamic in general. And so there's this idea, like the box cutters really present this idea to us because in Jennifer's body, Needy has to kill Jennifer because Jennifer is possessed by a demon. And she has to kill her best friend in order to kill the demon. And when she does kill the demon, she takes on some of the demon essence. Okay. So there's this kind of theme going on between Ty and Van, and you know what's going on between them. Is she going to have to kill Dark Thaisa because this is a demonic possession by the man with no eyes? That's kind of how I'm viewing it. That's my interpretation of the situation. But, you know, in order to do that, she's going to be killing like the person she loves the most.
So
like, it's not like it's subjective. It's not like, oh, kill the demon, but Thaisa lives. No, you have to kill the vessel in order to kill the demon, right?
Well, and demons can jump from touching, if you ever seen the stuff like that, from touching or whatever, things like that. And I loved how this one, the devil's calling, freaking out, and then you see Thaisa there. I don't want to change, or I don't want to leave you. I don't want to leave you. And all of a sudden, I think the real Ty left again. And then the devil Ty came out, you know, you see it. And then that was the significance of all this curtain veil around her. And when then we're getting all of this symbolism where once that she's closed, I don't want to kill him. And then she closes it and then she opens up, right? And they're in the spiritual realm. They're opening the veil to Ty's childhood trauma. And what was so, like, to me, what was so great about this is that but Van, you know, she mentioned many times that like she doesn't even really remember most of it. She doesn't like do it. So I really do think she has taken on part of that. And she's like part of the evil Thaisa, or the tree Ty spirit. And tree Ty saying, don't worry, I won't take your eyes, because Van is now part of tree Ty's eyes. Like she sees through Van because they're tied. They're soul tied. She sees what's, and hears and thoughts, and the demon, they're tied together. Like they work in groups. They work in groups of 7 usually. Or at least 3s, the hearts, if you're watching Wheel of Time. But he's like, don't worry, I won't take your eyes, because she needs Van's eyes. And another thing that happened when we needed to stop the car, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that was Van, or that was the power of this evil Thaisa, demon Thaisa, that just she took it back and made Van, that did she control Van to start spitting up so that they had to go to the hospital so they could get away from her? Because she's trying to keep Van from danger. And she knows, and then she made Shauna pump her own gas. She made, like, she's not going to give Shauna anything unless Shauna gives something to her. And that's how like demons work. And there's kind of like how you have to have a trade. And there's another thing that happened in the car, like I think with Misty saying "I spy," and they're playing this "I spy" thing. I mean, come on, look at the correlation there. And she says the knapsack. Okay, I spy. Oh,
Sociopaths use the
Van's
silent letter.
Yeah, I spy Van's knapsack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're texting each other the secrets, but the tape was in the knapsack. And what is Van known for? All of her VHS tapes. I think that Van is the one. I mean, she had the tape, and someone had mentioned in the comments too that I think that it was in Van's, maybe just Tree Ty or Evil Ty hid it in Van's tapes long ago for ready for when it's time to bring it out. You know what I mean? That's what, when she was going through all those tapes, there's probably in some Sandra Bullock cover. And then, you know what I mean? Like, who knows? But that's a little reaching there. But at the same time, I just wanted to put that she does say, I spy a knapsack, and we're talking about the eyes, and I'm not going to take your eyes. And this whole thing where she's just like burning herself and saying, we're not trading, we're just prolonging. And that's what demons do. I mean, you become like a zombie, and you prolong, and narcissists too. Like they prolong you from leaving or breaking up or doing things, and this whole tragic trauma bond of the 3, just that goes cycle and cycle and cycle.
It's an interesting thing. So, in her vision of her younger self, Van says it was never what did she say? It was never a it was always an even trade or something like that. And so we have to think about like those times that Van has escaped death or cheated death, which has happened several times, between the plane crash to the wolf attack, all of those kind of things. So the plane crash, obviously, there were a lot of other deaths that were going on at that point in time. So perhaps her life, like she says, maybe I just got lucky. Like maybe she did just get lucky, or someone else was the trade for that. But then later, like during the wolf attack, when they get back to the camp after the wolf attack, that's what kind of pushes Laura Lee to make the decision to fly out. And then which ultimately costs her life. And so you have to wonder, like, was Laura Lee's death like in exchange for Van's, because she survived. And of course, Ty was present for that. She sort of intercepted the situation, the wolves attacking her. And so with Ty being the only person who can save her, is that relevant to the situation? Like, did she intercept her from death? And instead, Laura Lee was the one to go. And I guess we'll have to rewatch that, because there's a lot of times when these situations with Ty, like I do think that Ty operates in such a way, or like the man with no eyes operates through her in such a way that he's trying to like collect souls, but using her as like a vessel for it. And so there's been these moments where it's like Ty's inaction has ultimately caused people's deaths. Like when we look at Travis, the situation with Travis, when Misty and Nat went up to Vermont or wherever the heck he was living, and they drove up there. They were going to try and save him. They go to his house. They break in there. and he's not even dead. He doesn't die until later that night. But then they get arrested, they get sent to jail, and they call Ty and they say, Ty, can you get us out of here? Kind of thing. Can you bail us out? And she won't do it. And she says, oh, well, Travis is just the worst. You guys are just the worst for each other. And her inaction caused Travis's death,
Mhm.
because if if she would have bailed them out, there's the chance that Misty and Nat would have found Travis and stopped that whole situation from happening. Now, it's not
Ev
guaranteed, but there's little things like that where, there's little subtle pulling of the strings or non-pulling of the strings on Ty's behalf that ultimately end up in like some terrible situation, right? Even
well,
like in the wolf attack situation, like somehow Thaisa unconsciously took the necklace from Van, which was meant to be a protective symbol from Lottie, but Ty is the one who ends up with it, and then who gets attacked by a wolf? It's Van, you know? So there's just something there
it's
to that
that
idea that like that they're intrinsically linked to each other, the life and death force, push and pull, and that Ty has some effect or power over that.
I mean, it was the hermeticism type thing too, as above, so below. Every reaction has its reaction and things like that. If you get one into that. But I like this whole idea, maybe them pulling the van over or them saying, hey, we need to not let Shauna kill this girl is what brought, partially that, because that was going to be the trade-off for keeping Van alive. I will keep you alive to do this. And the scene that you mentioned about her saying, well, maybe I'm just lucky, that took belief. Like, Van is known for her belief, known for her power talks, known for her, let me find purpose in this trial and tragedy. Let me find purpose in eating Javi. Let me find purpose and belief. And, but at that moment when she's talking to outside of she was outside of the van. Van's outside of herself, outside of the van. And she is saying to the demon Ty or tree Ty, what are we, rogue Ty? Is that what we called her? Anyway, saying to her that basically she doesn't believe in her anymore. So
Yeah.
is that punishment? Is this punishment for taking back the belief? Because, demons and witchcraft and spells and things like that, it's only as powerful as you believe in it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, you know, who made this comment over here? I just saw it. Hold on.
Can we go back here?
Did someone just delete their comment? Because I really like. Oh, here we. Okay. So Van survived twice, so the wilderness took Laura Lee and Jackie out, and that's actually a good point because, going back to the plane crash and Van being trapped in the plane, and Shauna being the one to go, she's like, we got to get Van out. She's trying to save her, but then Jackie says, no, we got to get out of here, Shauna, just in time for that explosion to happen, which thankfully Van survived. But there is this like, then it created this awkward situation between Van and Jackie where she's like, yo, you just left me in there to die. So what if, Jackie's death was like a payment for that? Like Jackie,
Sorry.
I don't know. There's just something there. Like, she tried to like take a life, and so she tried to take a life from death, and so only death can pay for life kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's a only death can pay for life equation.
so this is a good question based on the current discussion. Why was Dark Ty pushing Ty to go after Van in Star Season 2? What do they want? Well, what do they always want? They want us not to be human because they're if you look at like the levels of where we are in those standards, like we can have control and power over them or us, depending on if we permit it. But she wanted to give permission, and she wanted to get, I think everything changed once Van and her had intercourse, once Van broke her like kind of oaths and they started sleeping together, because that's when they became fleshly again, and again losing that spiritual realm. And I think also, like, what do they want? They just want to terrorize and destroy you. And I think she wanted to come out. A Dark Ty pushing Ty to go after Van, because at that point she was only eating dirt and hidden away in a cave and had no voice, had no eyes,
Needed the
had
spiritual meat.
nothing. She needed her spiritual me, yes, and Van has always been dark Thaisa's eyes and voice.
Mhm.
Like when regular Thai would switch, she would not remember, not be able to see, would be sleepwalking, and
Mhm.
Van was tied and would lead her to
Mhm.
the next symbol, to lead her to the next life, to lead her to the next point of belief where, hey, this entity is coming back to life, coming back to into force. So that she needed, remember, like, and in searching out Van, Thaisa runs out of gas. And here they are,
Yeah.
they're running out of gas again because she's taking all the gas. I mean,
On that note, like, I think, like, it's important to, to that we're all on the same page. Like, okay, so when Misty shows up at their hotel room, she gets the key. I think that woman is meant to be Bethany, the woman who lets Misty into the room. And Misty turns to her and she says, your country thanks you for your service. I'll be sending you a 1099 or something like that. But I think that's meant to be Bethany, even though it's definitely not Bethany, but random Asian woman, sure. Okay.
wait, who is
So she lets her into
Bethany?
the
Who's
room.
Beth? I don't.
Bethany
Who's
was
Bethany?
Thaisa's campaign manager in seasons 1 and 2. So she
Oh,
owns the car that Ty borrowed. Okay. And so, or that Ty borrowed to drive to Van and then left it on the side of the road, which I also believe she left some incredibly incriminating evidence in because she had gone to Jessica Roberts' house right before that and gotten all her files and everything. And then when she got out of Bethany's car, she didn't have the files with her. So as far as I'm concerned, she left those files in Bethany's car, and Bethany has a very clear idea of what's going on. But regardless, we don't have to get into all of that. But I think that so she lets Misty into the hotel room, and where they've been, living this like luxurious life, and then all of a sudden her cards are maxed out. Now, Bethany was there. Bethany has been seen. Thaisa, we don't know like what funds she's living off of, like where her money's coming from, but I have a feeling that like Bethany has access to her like her banking information or her financial information, and that's how she was able to find out like exactly where she was. So, and she can probably see that Thaisa is just spending like living this life of luxury on the credit cards, which may or may not be personal. Now, if they were personal credit cards, Bethany wouldn't have information on that. But if they were business cards, your work credit cards, your campaign funds, Thaisa, campaign funds that you're out spending on your own
how about
personal, like, luxurious vacations with your lover.
how how about those nails? Like they were like wolf claw nails, like silver
They are
nails.
crazy. That, and like,
They were wolves.
it's like if we were wondering, like, is this Thai or other Thai? Regular Thai would never have those nails. Let's be clear. Um, So I just think
Oh
that,
no.
like, she's probably getting cut off financially by her campaign fund, and she could not give a freaking crap. That was the funniest thing at that scene. She's like, "Oh, it's always me." She hands her the card. The card gets declined. Oh, well, is what it is. We must have been spending too much on our vacations. She is not concerned whatsoever, which leads me to believe she's not spending her own money, which leads me to also believe that she is spending her campaign funds, which means that she's just spending like money that people have donated to her, or like taxpayer funds, which is like, hello, guys. All right. We have a problem here. And so, and that's what I've always speculated, that like the man with no eyes or other Thaisa is like connected to that political side of her. And the fact that they've just abandoned that whole thing is like really telling of her mental state, or the motivations of the man with no eyes, who's working through her to like control like nations. I think it's a nod to like this idea of like satanic politicians and that kind of thing, which is obviously a very common theme. And so I loved exploring that, but then now they're like abandoning it, and it doesn't make sense to me. Was the whole
I think it'll
thing
come
just so
back.
that she could lure in Van? Because I feel like there are easier ways of doing that. But it's just interesting. how it's all playing out, and now she's tapped out. And so what's going to happen going forward now that she's been financially tapped out? How is Ty going to maintain her lifestyle, you know?
I mean, I'm surprised her wife hasn't Baker acted her.
For real. Like,
Like,
there's just so much to,
because I'm sure she would do it to her wife.
I just don't know. Like, I'm having a really hard time swallowing the pill of the, like, self-impeached Thaisa Turner. Like, I can't. Like, I'm sorry. You spend like 2 seasons building up this whole political storyline, and then we're just gonna, nope, actually, she's impeached. She's the disgraced senator. Like, what? That's not how real life works. That is literally not how it works. She would be all over the press. She would be all over the tabloids, the newspapers, all over the internet. Her and Van and them just going out doing whatever they want to do. Like, the whole thing would just be everywhere, all over the news. So, like, I'm sorry. I need a better explanation, because I can't buy it. It just doesn't fit with the story. We've spent too much time establishing Senator Thaisa, for us to just like, no, actually just throw it out the window.
I mean,
never
I think it's going to come back, and it'll come back in a way to really destroy her, as if it already hasn't. But this is, again, another characteristic thing of, like, once they get what they want of a predator, once they have what they want, they don't need you anymore. Once they've eaten it, you're gone. Once you've been banged, they don't want to date you anymore. Like, once you have that, she already achieved it. What's next? I need something more. Nothing is enough for her, because it's that insatiable hunger. It's that insatiableness of a wild animal versus a human spiritual thing. And then that's where it all goes into the spiritual play, because we will always be insatiable. We will always have sin. We will always have these things, and we need to control them. And that's where the spiritual thing comes into play. And that's why she needs Van, because Van keeps her satiable. And I think her and them being not together, them being so separated, is probably what kept actual Ty under control, because she brings out the insatiable Thaisa.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. You know what? I had this thought this morning too, as I was just getting ready. I was like, what it would have been really interesting would have been to see adult Lottie, her reaction to the tape. Because we're never going to get to see that. And I was like, that would have been super interesting. Like, what her current, like, frame of mind, how she would have reacted to that.
Oh, okay. So this just came to me right now. Somebody up here, let me find it. They put something about when they in Lottie's room, when they were putting things away, that there was a knapsack, or that, like, what's I'm sorry, Jen, let me find this thing.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay. What if Lottie, okay, so anyway, here's the point. What if, in paying back the money, and Lisa, there was like a knapsack in the possession too. What if, in paying back this money, Lottie was the one that actually had the tape, and that she let it loose because she wanted to release all of this baggage, literally baggage, that she had on her soul, and this baggage, and then her guilt and shame, that was her release of her murder. That was the final release she needed to really connect with the wilderness and pass on her torch. And we see all these people putting the torches out, and then Lottie just going full off. It could be like a whole thing, like that was her passing on the torch, the knapsack, letting out the real truth, about her father, letting out the real truth about where she's been, and that, like, you know what I mean, about, because we see Lottie kind of
I like
looking
that.
looking in the mirror, like before she dies, she's looking in the mirror, she's saying, I'm sorry, these techniques that you use for yourself. I think a lot of people think she was practicing But I don't think Lottie is the person that feels like she has to owe Shauna an apology, but she wants to do it because she wants to make Shauna a better person. But I think that she was really saying it to herself before she knows what she has to do is lay down her own life to help save the people that she loves, like Lisa and her father. Maybe she traded her life. Like, Lottie is that's what just kills me, because the Lottie that I felt sympathy for after them being locking her up and them all scapegoating on her, she's forgiving them in a sense. Maybe she traded it so that they were like finally released.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. I actually had not even considered, because the tape shows up on Shauna's porch like the night before
She
Lottie
comes.
shows up. So
Mhm.
that's entirely possible. Sorry, I'm just checking X real quick just to make sure we didn't get a season 3 update. Nope. Or season 4 update, excuse me. Just making
I
sure.
think that's I
Sometimes
think
things
that's
like that
actually a
happen while we're
really
live.
a really good theory, is Lottie letting go of her baggage. She's like, and she
I like
doesn't need a
that.
ride. She doesn't need a ride when she's getting picked up from the bank. She's meeting up for a personal conversation with Thaisa, and she goes to like apologize. Like, Lottie didn't have her bag. Like, she had like what, one little bag. She didn't have all that stuff. Like, you would imagine, like, if like rich girls, whatever, they travel with like 20 bags, okay, no matter where they go, unless you're like jet hopping and you buy stuff when you get there. But like, I
Yeah.
don't know, like she's paying back. She's doing what you're supposed to do. Like, if you do a 12-step program, you're what is it called? Just when you are doing the stuff that you need to call everybody and say, hey, I did this, I'm guilty of this, like, or hey, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Your
And
apologies. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I like that. I hadn't considered that idea. I mean, I think we are led to believe that it is Hilary Swank's character or this Alex person, which I really don't think. And again, coming back to the Alex idea, so there is an actress they've hired. Her name is Jaylee Hamidi to play Alex, and the actress who's playing her is only 27 years old. So like, if we're gonna do a little like timeline math, okay, so the girls were out there 25 years prior, and supposedly, from what we understand, that Hannah was a teen mom and she had this child at the local hospital, but the child didn't even have her mother's name. So the actress again is 27 years old. And if Hannah was a teen mom, like I'm guessing Hannah's about 25 or maybe 30. I don't know. You guys tell me. Like so according to her obituary, she attended night school for high school, and then she went to Keene University to study herpetology, and then she is part of a continued like research department at Keene University. So I'm guessing that like she graduated college and then she's still working for the college, so she didn't like branch out and do something else. So I'm guessing like the timeline's somewhat condensed. So like a lot of people are speculating she might be older, that like Hannah was older, like 35 or 40, but I actually don't think so. I think she's like 25 or 30, which would make her child, you know 5 or 10 years old at the most, because she was a teen mom, which means that the child, so then add 25 years since then, which means that this Alex daughter would be like closer in age to the adult women, maybe a few years younger, like 5 years younger than them or something like that. But they're teenagers, and this child, if Hannah's a teen mom, then her kid would probably be about, at least 5 or 10 years old by the time Hannah's going out into the wilderness, right? This is wilderness math. We're just doing timeline math here. So the girl that they hired to play Alex is only 27 years old. So it just doesn't really match up, right? It's not really working for me, which it just leads me to believe that Alex doesn't have any idea about any of this. Yes, maybe someone went out there and found the tape. I don't think it was Alex. I don't. It would just, like, if Alex were to be the one that went out there to search for the tape, she would probably do it once she became an adult. So generously assume she was 10 when Hannah was out there. 20, so that would be like 10 more years until she's an adult to try and figure out who her mother was. Like we don't even have the information of like, was Alex adopted or did her mother raise her and give her a different last name? Like there's a lot of questions here because I don't even know if Alex may have just been put up for adoption, right?
Could
We don't have that information. So like,
I mean, Alex and Lisa are the same age, right? That could be something.
Wait a second.
And that could explain a lot of
because you know what they hide. You know what? Hold on. Let's not get to it because they did hide. There is an actress that's been cast as Alex, but that's a good one.
Okay,
that's a good one.
But that is a good one. But I really
to be someone so bad. I'm like, Lisa, please. I love her.
Lisa is hobby. I still go with it. Lisa is hobby. Okay, it will always remain canon. But look, I really honestly think though that so two thoughts. One is, could Shauna and Thaisa are tied too. Okay, could Shauna also be switching and not remembering? Could Shauna be literally just self-destroying herself? And I know, but that's like a stretch because when you do switch, you don't remember. She could have multiple personality with all this stuff going on. It's just an idea. But back to the point with the tape though, it's got to be one of the Yellowjackets that's been holding it out. It's got to be. And I think my Lottie idea is like sufficient because Lottie does have the stash of secrets on everyone and files and folders it just makes her going to go prey on trees and like literally like trying to hear the wilderness. Let me follow the tracks back. Or maybe Nat had it because Nat followed the tracks back to the log to search out more clues and more things, because somebody mentioned it could be a Nat storage unit. I like all of these ideas. I think all of these
and everything.
I think that we have been citizen detecting, chat group, everybody. This is such like a great episode of citizen detective work. Yes, team. Yes. Go blue. Go gold.
Well, guys, I think we've pretty much covered it all. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to mention, and somebody did mention it in the chat. Thank you. But I also had it in my notes. The Jeff rash situation, him having the rash, he thinks he's got bed bugs or something. Yes, I think there's a stress factor to that. And there is a parallel also to Jackie back in season 1. So after they got to the cabin, I want to say it was episode 3, they get to the cabin and Jackie has like poison ivy or poison oak and it's on her leg and she's scratching at her leg quite a lot and putting on like ointment or what have you. And Sean is watching her through the window. She's inside the cabin. Jackie's outside the cabin. Remember, she like storms off and she's like, forget all this. So that was reminiscent to me of the situation with Jeff and his rash. And Jeff has, connecting him to Jackie, like Jeff has a lot of like death foreshadowing going on this season. And even in the last episode when he and Callie were playing cards, his hand, he had 666. So I think there's some hints, some ideas that something might happen to Jeff, and I don't think any of us want it to happen. But
not today, Satan.
I think this is like maybe what's going to come to a head between Shauna and Callie and what's going on between them, because I think Callie knows her mom is like not a good person and she knows her dad is like fine. He's a good guy. And
not today, Shauna.
Not today,
I like
Shauna.
This. Shauna. So Shauna's going through the alphabet. ADAM. So ALEX. AMANDA. I'm next. She's coming after me next.
Yep. And she's got a new pawn shop knife, So
oh. Hi, Mama. Speaking of Okay, so this pawn shop knife, I was dying because I actually just recently went to Goodwill. I love Goodwill. And since we're talking about whether you have goodwill or bad will or good intentions or bad intentions, they did have the red discount sale, 50% off.
You know what
So
else? Oh, sorry.
I thought though with the 50%, how ties 50%. That's actually what triggered my idea. Is Shauna 50%? Is she tied to the dark tide too, the same way Van is? Because they have made in demonic sense and slaying and worlds, they made soul ties. They have bonds, they have, you know what I mean? Like, and she could be only this 50% of her, obviously, but they do have those
I don't know
days of the
about that. I just
no, but
think
they
it'd
do
be too
have
much
days
to
of the
have.
week sales. It's
It'd
stretching,
be
I
too much to
know.
have them have two characters with that, but I think that actually, and
No,
like
it's
there's
a
this
normal thing
idea.
for
So
psychopaths, though. It's a normal thing for psychopaths to set. It's just splitting. They're switching. They're splitting. They'll blink or they'll like she does this thing with her lips like, and then like she'll just go into a conscious state and then she stonewalls it out. Like she does it or justifies it or doesn't remember or like I don't know why I have the gun. I don't know why I did these things. It's what they do. I mean, it just is
I
what it
think
is.
that's just her.
But
That's her
I don't
fake
think it's
ass
the same as
bullshit.
Ty. I don't think it's the same as Ty per se. Ty's is different. Hers
Yeah.
is more of a mental, legitimate illness. And when you start to do things like that, it becomes not it becomes just like cutting up cooking dinner.
Well,
That's what it
so my
becomes.
thought on this is that because she's got this pawn shop knife, she's opening the case on it. And who gave Shauna the case, the scabbard, the sheath for her knife out in the wilderness was Melissa. We already talked about that. And so there's this idea, and they talked about in the van. Now, this is one of the things that came up. So they make a mention that Jen and Melissa had gotten close to Hannah, but Jen and Melissa are both dead, is what they say. And when they say that, the camera pans to Shauna, and she kind of has this guilty look on her face. And so a lot of people are speculating that, whatever, like we don't know the circumstances of Melissa and Jen's death, but potentially it could have been faked. And I know that like one of the biggest theories about Hilary Swank's character, who is coming in on the next episode, is that she is Melissa. So there's the chance there that Shauna knows something. Like we said, Virginia is for lovers and Melissa is her lover. And there's so much drama, so much layers to this because like Shauna is like this kind of closeted bisexual woman. And that's not even like factoring in, like I was saying earlier, like Shauna has all this baggage, and I don't actually think the source of a lot of it, she, we've seen throughout the series that like Jackie is this omnipresent like source of her like guilt and everything, like this all-encompassing, like, I don't know, whatever vessel for her guilty feelings and her guilty actions. But at the same time, like she has this whole relationship with Melissa, and obviously it exposes the fact that she is bisexual, if not just gay, like a closeted gay woman. And so like all these guilty feelings like stretching back to Jackie, I don't know if that's necessarily applicable. Clearly she's got some baggage when it comes to Melissa, and whether or not Melissa is alive is still up for debate. Why Melissa would fake her death, I don't know. I mean, there's questions we don't have answered. We still don't even know who makes it out of the wilderness, and that's definitely something we're probably going to learn over the next couple of episodes. But like, yeah, I just think that there's something more to this Melissa situation that Shauna knows of. And if Hilary Swank is playing her, then yeah, it all kind of, when it comes to the knife and the sheath for the knife, which Melissa had given her, it kind of draws more hints that Melissa is potentially Hillary Swank, and she knows, that's like her connection to Shauna. And it's just all this like imagery layering up. The same with that log scene in Lord of the Rings and Walter and the DNA. There's like
I
just a lot going on. It's like a bubbling cauldron of information.
I like this. Valerie is saying like Nat's storage unit. Walter found it in Nat's storage unit as a gift to Misty, but he's probably withholding information, like we know he does, and he's creating drama for mystery in him and her. And I don't know. That's
a really
good. Yeah, I like that.
Now
I like
we have
that.
this idea that if the tape made it out, it could have potentially been in Natalie's storage unit, and Walter might have found it, or just like Jackie's necklace, Lottie might have ended up with it somehow, and she's been holding on to it all this time, and then she delivered it to Shauna's house the day before she shows up on Shauna's porch, which is kind of like funny anyways, because like imagine if it was Lottie, she leaves the tape there, and then the next day she just comes and knocks on the door and like acts like she knows nothing. Like imagine if Shauna had actually listened to the tape like right then, that night or what have you, and her reaction to seeing Lottie like show up, she would probably be even more so like she is not staying with us kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So then that kind of makes me withdraw a little bit though on that. Is it Lottie who sent the tape out or was Lottie just waiting on the reaction or for Shauna to say something? Because that is also true. Like, in like monking and healing and stuff like that, sometimes you have to hold space for others to say things. And I like this comment though. Walter's gutting for Shauna now because she didn't text him back. Like, how dare you? Wait, what does Misty say?
Left on red.
Misty says to Walter, this is not warranting for a conversation call. This is not warranting for a call. Like, yes, Misty, you go, queen.
Misty is just full of P&B. She has no problem standing up for herself this season, and I love it. I'm here for it. Every moment of it.
She's still a crazy F&B.
I actually love the dynamic between her and Shauna when she tells Shauna, "You're not a good friend. You're a bad friend to me, and you don't deserve me." Like that to me was like, yes, Misty, lay it in. Like, fuck yeah. Sorry, language.
Rats out the cage
on this live stream, so I apologize, but yeah. So, anyways, guys, well, let's start wrapping it up. We've been going for 3.5 hours. We really got to tie this up, but if you have any last minute questions, drop them in the chat. Mandy and I will try and get those answered for you, but otherwise I think we're about good here until next week. And next week's episode is called A Normal Boring Life, and the trailer is already out, so if you haven't seen it, but basically they're going to be questioning Hannah, finding out where they were. Did Mulder and Scully get together? These important things.
I like this comment, the Princess Bride, a couple of references, the Princess Bride. Maybe she too had the identity. Wait, you aren't best friend, you're the worst friend. Hey, Aaron, you're the best friend.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, y'all.
But yeah, it's I love the Princess Bride references. I love Melissa and like her sweet like that, like her sweet blonde thing. And like, we talked about, Mandy, you and I have talked about that she has these Daenerys connections, and maybe you guys don't want to believe that, but she to me is kind of like a little Khaleesi. She, gets together with Shauna, and she just goes for Shauna because she's the strong, muscle, and maybe that gives her a feeling of security and safety out there in this sort of powerless situation. Or maybe Melissa is just a psychosexual, because that might just be the case. Maybe she just likes a freaky kind of girl. And
hey, no shaming over here.
I know
that's not an admission. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm a sensual person. Okay, I'm an experience. All right, let's just say that. But everyone's different, and there's no shaming over here. Well, the love I have for you, like I said, bestie, is like more than agape.
Actually, I did one of the, well, anyways, I'm like, yeah, Misty in my love language. I'm just like awkward. Like,
I'm like a van over here right now before Thaisa, Evil Ty came back. That's what's going on with this. It's all sacred.
All right,
Or
so
it's
let's just check these
a
questions
succubus. We'll
here.
see.
So, do you have any ideas about why Shauna's flashback of young Lottie in Lottie's room included Lottie's face covered in blood after eating Edwin's brains? Yes, I do. I think that that is because that is the moment where, well, between that and the trial for Coach Ben, there's been these moments throughout season 3 where Shauna and Lottie are kind of joining forces. And I think that they are subconsciously bonded by their desire to remain in the wilderness for various reasons. But for Lottie, I kind of mentioned this before, like once she goes home, this whole thing is over and she has to take her schizophrenia medication again. And her dad, kind of treats her like a crazy person. And so she feels more authentic and free and unmedicated out there in the wilderness. And with Shauna had these traumatic experiences, including losing her baby, and her baby is buried out there. So to me, I feel like she doesn't want to leave. Why would she want to leave? Like, she feels like very connected to her baby, even though the baby died. The baby is buried there. So the idea of leaving him there and leaving him behind, I think, is just too much to even consider as a possibility. So for her, I think mentally, her and Lottie have like set up, tent poles in the ground, like they are there.
Soul Tide.
And yeah, and so for them to, yeah. So I think that that's the reason. Like, I think that that moment right there when she has the blood and everything on her face, I think was like a very significant moment for Shauna also, because as we're going to see probably in the next episode, like we have more contention going on between Shauna and Nat. Whereas who's going to be the leader? And we see that moment from the trailer where Shauna says, "You're not in charge anymore." And so that's coming up in the next episode. And so, like, that moment where Shauna, in her own mind, is the queen. She's embodying that queenly demeanor. She comes back into camp. Lottie is there, covered in blood. Like, the two of them are like on the same wavelength right in that moment.
Well,
So
and again, it like I've been saying the whole time, it's about going rogue, and rogue is originally how they created blush and this color and the red, and like her, and it's Lottie going down to eat the dirt, to eat the blood soil. Okay, rogue is the embodiment of the dirt from the floor up with your chakras, and when you're going and going up like the levels, and her just doing that is that connection beyond that. But and I think also like the brain, I couldn't help but think of monkey see, monkey do, or like in how in Thailand, I'm watching The White Lotus too. And they have like the monkeys, they're covering their eyes, and they eat monkey brains. And I'm like sitting here like, okay, well, we have to do this. I guess Lottie's like, okay, we got to do what we got to do. And
yeah.
that was her way to connect. And just to prove that she would do what the wilderness wants her to do. Because I don't think it was so much, it was like Lottie's like, okay, things are getting out of control. Sean is taking things. Let me have to do what, like, step up. You're not going to lead us anymore. Shauna, this is the leader, but she had to do what she had to do to be favored in Shauna's eyes, in a sense. And I love this. Thank you, Oregano. Yes, we still are here. Thank God, the wilderness. See? Someone loves
We're starting
it.
to wrap it up. We're just getting in these last minute
We are
questions. So if you have any last minute questions, drop them in the chat. Okay, so while Marjorie Mastic, Kodiak, and Hannah get together, also her and Eric. I don't know.
I hope they all get together. Frog orgy. Let's go.
Yeah, there's frog orgying happening. The screams, yeah, we know where those came from. No, I don't know. They haven't gotten together. I don't know if they will. It just kind of depends on how. I just don't know how things are going to go with Kodiak being in the camp. I mean, it's a really good question. Like, how are the girls going to react to having someone a male? Like, this is the other thing too with like the reincarnating energy. Okay. There's a lot of like Jackie vibes going on with Hannah. Okay. Hannah loves the frogs. Jackie loves the rabbits. They're innocent. They're positive. They're like, their fashion sense is kind of similar. There's something there between Jackie and Hannah. So it's almost like, and then with Kodiak, Kodiak is a guide. He's the wilderness guide. He knows how to survive out there. He's adapted to it. He has this reincarnation symbolism. So with that in mind, it's almost like Kodiak is almost like a reincarnated Coach Ben in a sense, because he shows up like Coach Ben, had he had the spiritual milk of survival. Okay. He had the basics. He is like, I know how to hunt, but I can't hunt because I have no leg. I know how to do, certain things. I can teach you guys how to do them, but I can't actually do them. So then Kodiak shows up literally right after Coach Ben's death. And he's almost like a better version of Coach Ben. He's capable. He's a man. He's an authority figure. He knows how to hunt and fish and survive out there. And so it's almost like they're reincarnating with like a better version of the last one, in a sense. And maybe that's like taking it a step too far. I don't necessarily think that Kodiak is Coach Ben reincarnated, but it's kind of a funny idea that like that sort of figure just shows up. And so I'm curious how the girls are going to react to that, because Coach in his last, weeks and months was very like, a weakened, watered down version of himself, had no authority to lead them, and nobody respected him to begin with anyways, even going back to basically the point when he lost his leg. Everyone just was like, well, knocked him down a peg kind of thing. And so Kodiak,
and by the way, croak means to peg. It does. But
that's the sound you make when you get pegged. No, okay, anyways,
this theory applies to the new Taissa though too. This theory applies to the new Taissa. Once they went back to the wilderness and the new Lottie and the new Shauna, like it's the better versions of the more wilderness versions of themselves that they need, and Misty, the more better versions they needed of themselves. So that is some really deep. That's some deep stuff. Start applying it that way. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
I love you.
No, so there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. So, okay, let me go ahead and get up to the next. Let's see. The wilderness provides Kodiak just before winter. Yes, exactly. So, like, it's kind of making me wonder, like, did he, and there is this divine, I talked about this in my last video with the bird watchers, them being called bird watchers or birders, the watchers, the biblical watchers, and that kind of thing, coming in as like a divine justice as a contrast to their wilderness justice, right? Because the girls are kind of out of control. Like they think they have a wilderness justice system down, their court system and that kind of thing, and that it's a fair and impartial system, or at least for like how they're functioning out there. But like, do you think that if there's a higher power who's looking upon them, that they approve of how they're handling things? We can't say for sure. We can't. But even if the wilderness was an entity or a god figure, I think the wilderness might even look upon their actions as like, okay, I think we're taking it a little far now. And so this idea that Hannah and Kodiak, because also let me say this, Hannah's full name is Hannah Sophia Finch. And Sophia means divine wisdom, divine feminine wisdom. Finch is connected to Christ's passion, okay? And there's reincarnated symbolism connected to that. And then Hannah being a name that's like a palindrome, where it's like a mirror of itself. So that is applying to like the dual realities. And then with Kodiak,
the name Hannah is a mirror of itself.
Yeah, that's what
it's
an
it's
palindrome. So and then with Kodiak being sort of like this like reincarnating green man energy, and them being these watchers, and then they sort of arrive right after Coach Ben's death. There's just this like divine energy coming on with them. And of course they're older also, so there's like an authoritative energy already given to them. And so it's just like, how are the girls going to react to this? Because they almost seem like a divine justice sent to intervene on their behalf, because things are just getting wild. That's just kind of my thoughts, just to kind of like wrap things up there.
Finch Cafe, the Finch Cafe, and also 7744. That's our angel number today.
Oh, beautiful.
You, Johnny J. Yes. I love you. Yes.
Yeah, there were
Johnny
her
J.
and Laura Lee, they were omitted from that because we don't have bodies for them, I think is what that came down
Johnny
to.
Johnny J should be like
They were
star
o
VIP right now.
only acknowledged because they had their bones, their bodies, their remains, which I think is interesting, but
Mm.
all right, so let's see. Zeus is god of thunder and lightning and electrical glitches. Indeed.
Yes. Miranda, I noticed that you mentioned some comment earlier about the electrical stuff. And yes, the Holy Spirit, you feel electricity. It strikes Zeus vibes. There is the when they have the snake and the what am I thinking of? The Hindu, the serpent. What am I thinking? Why can I think of this right now? When you have anyway, when they have like giant revelations, it's a Kundalini awakening.
Oh, okay,
Kundalini
okay.
awakening. Yes. But you get this giant electrical glitch through your body and you like, you surge and you kind of have a spasm. And then all of a sudden, like, you feel like this euphoria wisdom. And then they say the same thing happens when you actually receive the Holy Spirit, like when they did with the disciples and they start speaking tongues and things like that. And there is like an energy flow, a natural magnetism energy flow, and all of our bodies connected. And we've seen that in science improving and all these things where what goes in and out. So are we, and we've talked about with like Carl Jung and in season 2 with a lot of the healing stuff, is our magnetism, what we put out or what we pull in. And there's like, they say there's soul sucking, energy sucking demons and vampire, like energy sucking people, narcissistic, whatever. But, you have to balance it out. And then you can become and radiate this energy that creates that charisma, like that creates like a Kodiak. Noble, it's necessary. Magnetism. That's probably why he's like, don't save your bullet because I have this energy field around me that's omnipresent. But it does. And there are people who actually are spiritual people who do see electricity like real time. There are things like that, and there are like when you're chi and energies like that, and it's a real thing. Like I've tapped into it. It's very real. I'm not, it's not like the wheel of time, but you have to work and you have to really meditate. And it's not quite telekinesis, baby, but let's tenacious D on this.
I just had this idea too with because especially in season 3 with Travis in these last couple episodes, he's really stepping into that Apollo figure. Like he's stepping into that Apollo energy. Like he's definitely stepping into like the leading male figure, for better or for worse, out in the wilderness. But what's interesting is because he is connected to so much of that Apollo symbolism, which has to do with like his visions and that kind of thing. But then Apollo is the son of Zeus. And so that moment where he's like, save your bullet, there's something there because Apollo has I think he has a golden bow or he shoots golden arrows or something like that. And Zeus has his lightning bolts, but yeah, there's something there. There's something there. We're onto something here. It's always been Zeus. I've always believed it's Zeus firmly. So yeah, I'm glad that we have that. And maybe Kodiak is Zeus. Maybe he is a reincarnated wilderness spirit or the embodiment of the wilderness. But those are like where I'm at with Kodiak. And Wild Marjoram, hey, if anyone else in the chat's listening, so I've been talking about Lord Huron for a couple weeks. So if you guys are looking for something new to listen to, some good wilderness music, definitely check out Lord Huron. Strange Trails, excellent album. Yes, Apollo also spreads disease. Yes, he is.
Lightning crashes. Come on.
Yep. All right, you guys. Well, I think we have about covered it all.
Yeah, we're done.
So thank you all for being here. It's been a long live stream, almost 4 hours. So let's go ahead. We're going to wrap it up here. Keep an eye out on the channel. I'm going to be working on a video this week. So hopefully I'll have that out to you guys in the next couple of days, by Thursday at the very latest, but I'm hoping to get it out by Wednesday. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. We should be back next week doing another live stream and back to our regularly scheduled stuff. So thank you all for being here. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode here with us. But I appreciate all of you guys for being here and watching this very long stream with
Yeah.
us. It's been a lot of fun.
Don't
I'm really
forget
glad we got back to it.
Don't forget to vote for your brackets for the Final Four.
Yes.
Who's gonna win?
Yes.
Nobody.
Our Final Four will be starting tomorrow, so definitely make sure and get your votes in. And it's going to be Nat versus Coach Ben.
And whoever wins will be my first parody. This is promising. I finally got my mic, finally got myself coming. Access Mandy is going to start. It's just, I'm not on my time. I'm still in winter over here. Okay, just bear with me.
She's hibernating.
It's springing forth. It's springing forth.
What? It's been 7 years, Mandy. It's time to wake up with the rest of the frog.
Well, let me just tell me, I'm so excited. I'm a under promise, over deliver.
I hope so. But no, I have great faith in you. So, but thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate you all so much. And we're just happy that we get to come here and have this fun chat with you. And it's been nice to get back to it. So, oh, and I didn't even tell you guys, I brought my frog. I have a frog. He's right here. Oh, Snoop Froggy Frog, but he's very small. He's an African dwarf frog. But anyways, I do have a frog. So he made a cameo in the live stream in case you caught him. Although I think my chair was.
I think we need him. Bring him a close. Okay, Snoop Froggy Frog. He should be our new.
It's really heavy. I should bring it closer, but it's very heavy. So
he should be our new mascot.
That would be me. Drop the frog on the live stream. No,
that's the new mascot, yo.
Well, he is a pretty cool frog, to be perfectly honest. He's funny. I think it's a bigger home, but it's happening eventually. He was an unexpected guest. We suddenly became the weird pet family very quickly. We got a frog. My stepson's girlfriend gave him a little frog, and I always end up taking care of it. So that's fine. And then we also got chickens a couple weeks ago. So been dealing with my chickens. You got to in this economy. Gotta raise your own eggs.
What is it called when you have that one celebrity that you would want to have, like, that you could get away with having sex with in a marriage? What's it called? There's like the whole movie about it.
What was that? Something like your something card or your
your something card. Well, Snoop Dogg is my card. Okay.
That's insane.
Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, well, you know what? Let's get this frog orgy going. All right.
The heart wants what it wants, baby.
Hello, senior here. Senior Yellowjackets need a hall pass. Thank you. All right. Let's end on that. Let's Jackie out.
Beautiful note. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next week. All right. Jackie out.